Chapter 1929. He Gao, you're trying to cheat us out of the Han clan's tribulation divine robe. Be careful. A Han true emperor shouted. His powerful aura locked onto Lu Ming. You're not qualified to take our tribulation divine robe without taking down Lu Ming. Hand it over. The white-haired true emperor from the Han clan unleashed his worldly light. If He Gao didn't hand over the robe, he would attack at any time. The tribulation-transcending divine robe was extremely precious and could only be found by chance. Moreover, it was a one-time use item. After one tribulation, it would be useless the next time. Taking down Lu Ming and obtaining the Heavenly Emperor's sword would have been worth it. But now, Lu Ming and the Heavenly Emperor's sword weren't available. How could they be willing to give up the robe for free? He Gao's expression was ugly. He didn't want to give up the treasure that he had obtained. Fine, I'll give it back to you. But I did provide information, so you should compensate me. He Gao coldly said. Compensation? What do you want? The white-haired true emperor asked. A true emperor weapon. He Gao said. A true emperor weapon? The two true emperors from the Han clan glanced at each other and nodded. Very well, we agree. The white-haired true emperor nodded. A true emperor weapon was precious, but it was far inferior to the tribulation divine robe. Very well, I'll give you the robe. He Gao put on a pained expression and threw a storage ring to the white-haired true emperor. The white-haired true emperor from Han waved his hand and grabbed the ring. Explode! He Gao's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. Boom! The storage ring exploded and the destructive force blew the white-haired true emperor away. A gap appeared in the encirclement of the two true emperors. Run! He Gao seized the opportunity and flew out like a bolt of lightning, fleeing in the direction of the He family. Damn you, He Gao, you're courting death. The white-haired true emperor of the Han clan roared. What can you do to me if I hide in the He clan? He Gao sneered, his voice coming from afar. Now, it was more important for him to transcend the tribulation. He was less than 100 years away from transcending the tribulation. At most, he would hide in the He clan for the next 100 years. 100 years was just a blink of an eye to him. The He clan was as famous as the Han clan. As long as he hid in the He clan and did not come out, how could the Han clan do anything to him? His figure was like a bolt of lightning as he flew towards the He family. He Gao, how dare you steal my Han family's treasure? Your He family will pay the price. The other emperor roared and chased after He Gao, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. In the sacred courtyard of Yuan Mountain, with a flash, Lu Ming's figure appeared. Lu Ming had seen everything that had happened to the three true emperors. It seems like He Gao was the one who tipped off the Han clan, using my information in exchange for the Han clan's supreme treasure. Now they've fallen out. Very well, Han clan, just you wait. It won't be long before I make you pay. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. He took a step forward and disappeared. In the sacred courtyard of Yuan Mountain, a new tomb appeared on top of a mountain filled with rich origin energy. Lu Ming, Xiang, Tian Chue, and Xuening Xin kowtowed before the tomb of the valley's master. Behind them, the other members of the Dragon League also bowed. After a long time, Lu Ming stood up and poured a jug of wine in front of the tomb. Next, Lu Ming's thoughts moved and a figure appeared out of thin air in front of the tomb. This was the person Lu Ming brought out from the He clan, also someone from He Gao's mansion. Valley Lord, today, I will use the blood of this person from the He clan to pay tribute to you. In the future, I will personally take his dog head to pay tribute to you. Having said that, Lu Ming raised his blade and beheaded the person. Valley Lord, very soon, I will make the He clan and Han clan pay some interest. Afterward, he did not stay any longer. He turned and left the place. Too much sadness was useless. Lu Ming would make the He clan regret it with practical actions. At Lu Ming's residence, he took out the Chaos Stone and sized it up carefully. As expected, it has lost the chaotic origin energy. What a pity! Lu Ming probed. He injected his saint power and the law of chaos into it, but there was no reaction at all. There was no chaotic origin energy in the Chaos Stone. However, the Chaos Stone was still a Chaos Stone. Even if there was no chaotic origin energy, it could still be used as the main material to forge emperor weapons. Lu Ming bombarded the Chaos Stone with his saint weapon, but he could not leave a mark on it. Lu Ming refined it. At the critical moment, it might be used as a defensive treasure to block the enemy's attack. Then, Lu Ming closed his eyes and adjusted his breath. 3 days later, Lu Ming recovered to his peak. Then, he used the divine breath technique to change his appearance and left the Origin Mountain Saint Court. Outside the Origin Mountain Saint Court, there were still experts from the Hung clan guarding. When they saw Lu Ming come out, their spiritual consciousness constantly scanned Lu Ming's body, but they did not find anything unusual. Lu Ming swaggered away. Lu Ming came out for no other reason than to take revenge. He did not have the strength to fight against the He clan and the Hung clan, but he could collect some interest first. Lu Ming's first stop was Vientiane Tower. First, Lu Ming bought all the information about the Hung clan and the He clan in Vientiane Tower. He even bought the information of some of the important figures of the two clans. Of course, this cost him a lot of money. After Lu Ming took the information of the important figures of the two clans, he began to study it carefully. 3 days later, Lu Ming came to Vientiane Tower again. Vientiane Tower inquired about some information about the Hung clan and the He clan. Drunken Immortal Tower, one of the 3 towers in Celestial City. It was extremely famous in Celestial City, because the beauties of Drunken Immortal Tower were the most famous in Celestial City. Of course, there was also good wine that could make an immortal drunk. Therefore, this place had also become the gathering place of the young geniuses of many forces in Celestial City. Not only the young geniuses, even the older generation would come. He Yutong was one of the top geniuses of the He clan's younger generation. At a young age, he was placed in an important position by the He clan. Although he did not have the monarch body, he was only second to the monarch body. Now, his cultivation had reached the great sage perfection realm. However, during this period of time, he was very depressed. He was also cultivating in the Origin Mountain Saint Court, but the geniuses of the He clan did not have many achievements. They were suppressed in the Origin Mountain Saint Court. For sets of array discs, their He clan did not get a set. In the end, they could only choose to join the Divine Fire Alliance. Therefore, he was very unhappy. When he was not cultivating, he would run out of the Origin Mountain Saint Court, or return to the He clan, or go to the Drunken Immortal Tower to relax. In the Drunken Immortal Tower, there was a mirror-like lake. On the lake, there were sailboats floating. On the shore of the lake, there were pavilions standing tall. He Yutong was lying in a pavilion. There were 2 beautiful girls. One was rubbing his shoulders, and the other was lying in his arms. He closed his eyes and enjoyed the warm and fragrant jade. He Yutong, get out here. Chapter 1930. A loud roar broke the silence and He Yutong's mood. Which bastard dares to disturb me? You're courting death. He Yutong stood up and took a step out of the pavilion. His eyes were cold as he stared ahead. A middle-aged man stood on the lake with his hands behind his back. Who are you? He Yutong looked at the middle-aged man and narrowed his eyes. He did not know this man. I'm the one who wants your life, the middle-aged man said coldly. After that, his body swayed and rushed towards He Yutong. Saint power surged in his palm and condensed into a long sword. The long sword was like a rainbow, stabbing towards He Yutong as fast as lightning. He Yutong was shocked. He unleashed all his strength and a battle saber appeared in his hand. He slashed at the middle-aged man. Clang! The long sword and the battle saber collided and there was a buzzing sound. He Yutong's body shook violently. He kept retreating and spat out a mouthful of blood. The Eternal Spring Law. You're from the Heng family. Why do you want to kill me? He Yutong shouted. At this time, the people on the sailboats and in the other pavilions were already alarmed. They looked in their direction and were all shocked. The Eternal Spring Law was a law unique to the Heng family. Only the unique bloodline of the Heng family could comprehend the Eternal Spring Law. The Heng family wanted to kill He Yutong? Although the Heng family and the He family were sworn enemies and had a fierce battle 1,000 years ago, their relationship had eased a lot in the past few hundred years. Although there were still occasional conflicts, there were very few people who would kill each other in public for no reason. Now, why did the middle-aged man want to kill He Yutong? He Gao, you shameless dog. You took the treasure of the Heng family and did not return it. Then, I'll make the He family pay the price. The middle-aged man said coldly. The aura on his body burst out crazily. A terrifying sword light cut through the void and slashed towards He Yutong. No! He Yutong roared madly. He wanted to escape, but his battle prowess was far inferior to his opponent's. With a slash of the sword, All of his resistance collapsed. He Yutong was cut in half, and his corpse fell into the lake. He Gao, you asked for it. The middle-aged man left these words and soared into the sky, leaving this place. This middle-aged man was naturally Lu Ming in disguise. Previously, when he was at the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, he saw He Gao having a conflict with the two true emperors of the Han family. From the other party's words, Lu Ming speculated that He Gao must have used him as a condition to obtain the Han family's precious treasure. Later on, when the Han family wanted to take it back, He Gao refused to return it. Back then, the two true emperors of the Han clan wanted the He clan to pay the price. Now, Lu Ming took advantage of this and attacked the He clan to provoke a conflict between the two clans. As for Lu Ming's primal chaos laws, apart from the monarch Dao laws and the 10 supreme laws, all other laws could be transformed. The eternal spring law was not a King Dao law, so Lu Ming could naturally change it. The Han family's expert had killed the He family's prodigy, He Yutong. The reason was that He Gao of the He family had taken the Han family's treasure. After Lu Ming left, the news spread at a terrifying speed from the drunken immortal pagoda. Not long after, a few elders sat in a great hall of the He clan. The atmosphere was very solemn. Bang! He Gao slammed the table with fury in his eyes. Preposterous, does the Han clan want to start a war with us? They had received the news of He Yutong's death and were currently discussing it. It's all because of you. You stole the Han clan's tribulation divine robe and caused this disaster. He Yutong died because of you. Another old man said coldly. What do you mean? He Gao glared coldly at the old man. The old man was on the same level as He Gao, so he naturally wasn't afraid of him. He sneered. It's clear what I mean. If you didn't take the Han clan's treasure, they wouldn't have sent people to kill us. No matter what, you have to pay the price and hand over the tribulation divine robe to the clan. Within the He clan, it was naturally not a monolithic entity. It was divided into various factions. Nonsense. I deserve the tribulation divine robe. If you want it, then fight me. Let's see what you're capable of. He Gao roared. A powerful aura filled the hall. All right, stop arguing. The most important thing now is how to deal with the Han clan's revenge. Another old man waved his hand and said, at most, we'll fight with the Han clan. He Gao said coldly. It was impossible for him to hand over the tribulation divine robe. The tribulation divine robe was related to whether he could survive the heavenly tribulation, and it was more important than anything else. At this moment, they received a message at the same time. They took out their voice transmission jade talismans and their faces changed again. Damn it, the Han clan is too much. Are they going to start a war? A few old men roared in anger. They had just received news that 2 more experts from the He clan were killed by the Han clan. This was intolerable. The Han clan was obviously going to take revenge. If they delayed, many people would be killed. Let's go to the Han clan. I'd like to see if the Han clan wants to start a war. An old man sitting at the head of the table said coldly. Then he walked out with big strides. The other old men, including He Gao, followed him out of the hall and went straight to the Han clan. In a hall in the Han clan, a few old men were discussing something. Who sent people to kill the He clan? Someone asked. We didn't do that. He Gao might be despicable and shameless for taking the tribulation divine robe, but we're still thinking of a way. We didn't send anyone to kill the He clan. The white-haired true emperor who gave the robe to He Gao frowned. The others exchanged glances as well. They didn't send anyone, so who was it that killed the He clan's people? Could it be a member of the Han clan? The He clan is despicable and shameless. In my opinion, we should just kill them. Another true emperor said coldly. 1,000 years ago, the He clan and the Han clan had a bitter war. These true emperors had fought against the He clan before and had a great grudge. So what if they killed a few members of the He clan? Boom, boom. At this time, a terrifying fluctuation came from outside the Han clan. Powerful auras filled the air. Humph, looks like the He clan is here. He Gao took our tribulation divine robe and they still dare to come? Tell them to hand it over. The few old men snorted coldly and rushed out of the hall one after another, heading outside. Outside the Han clan, He Gao and the rest of the He clan's experts stood in the air. Their terrifying auras pressed down on the halls of the Han clan. Whoosh, whoosh. Figures flashed and experts appeared in the Han clan. Finally, a few old men from the Han clan arrived in the air. Each of them emitted a vast aura that neutralized the aura of the He clan. He Gao, you still dare to come? Hand over the Tribulation Divine Robe. Chapter 1931. Your Hung clan wants my Tribulation Divine Robe? Dream on. You sent people to kill my He clan. How do you explain that? He Gao shouted. We didn't send anyone to kill your people. An expert from the Hung clan said. Bullshit. You used the Eternal Spring Law to kill our people. Do you think we're blind? An expert from the He clan shouted. Ridiculous. He Gao took our robe and we didn't even come knocking on your door. Your He clan only lost a few useless pieces of trash and you're here to start a war? An expert from the Hung clan said coldly. The He clan and the Hung clan were mortal enemies. Although things had eased a bit in recent years, these martial emperors had lived for a long time and had fought each other countless times. Their grudge wasn't so easily resolved. Every time they met, it would be on the verge of breaking out into a fight. Good, very good. You killed our people. Do you think we're easy to bully? Unless your Hung clan doesn't come out in the future. Haha. He Gao sneered, implying that if the Hung clan could kill the He clan, they could do the same to the Hung clan. He Gao, I'll kill you first. The white-haired true emperor from the Hung clan wanted to kill He Gao right now to take back one of their divine garments. At this time, a figure flew over and landed next to the expert from the Hung clan. Sir True Emperor, not good. The He clan is secretly killing our experts. 2 great saints and 1 absolute saint have been killed. The person reported. What? Damn it! The true emperor from the Hung clan was furious after hearing this. The He clan was here to punish them on the surface but secretly sent people to kill them. How despicable! Nonsense, we didn't send anyone to kill your people. An old man from the He clan frowned. They clearly used the 4 seasons law. How dare you say they're not from the He clan? The person who came to report the news shouted. The He family's inheritance was the law of the 4 seasons, which was similar to the Heng family's law of eternal spring. In the distant past, the He family had even claimed to be the descendants of the celestial emperor, which was why they were mortal enemies with the Heng family. Damn it! You took my Hung clan's Tribulation Divine Robe and now sent people to kill my Hung clan's people. Do you think my Hung clan is easy to bully? Today, all of you will stay here. A furious Hang True Emperor channeled his world force and unleashed a terrifying sword ray towards a He True Emperor. If you want to start a war, don't think that the He clan is afraid of you. The True Emperor from the He clan furiously retaliated. Attack! The other experts of the Hung clan also attacked. Terrifying sword lights burst forth, shooting towards the experts of the He clan. However, the experts from the He clan were all at the True Emperor level. They started fighting back as well. This area was directly blasted apart. The terrifying shockwave wreaked havoc. The entire celestial city seemed to be trembling. A chaotic battle between true emperors was too frightening. Many were alarmed and flew up to watch. Oh God, those are the experts from the He and Hung clans. Are the 2 clans going to fight again after 1,000 years? In the distance, many people were trembling with fear. In the distant sky, Lu Ming turned into a dark-skinned youth and watched the battle from a distance. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. The truth was that his plan wasn't that great. He used the law of primal chaos to turn into members of the He clan and Hung clan to hunt down and incite conflict between the 2 clans. As long as the 2 clans calmed down and discussed this plan, it wouldn't be hard to see through it. They might even suspect Lu Ming. However, the enmity between the 2 clans was like gunpowder that could be ignited at the slightest spark. Moreover, the matter with He Gao made it impossible for the 2 clans to sit down and talk nicely. Sure enough, they attacked right away. Boom! Boom! Terrifying sword light and saber light filled the entire sky. Space constantly cracked open, revealing a terrifying pitch-black space. However, this was the Hung clan. As soon as they started fighting, powerful auras burst out from the Heng family. Terrifying experts woke up from their seclusion and joined the battle. The true emperors from the He clan were at a disadvantage. Charge back to the He clan. A true emperor from the He clan shouted. There were 5 emperors from the He clan. They worked together to attack Li Qie. However, the Hung clan had more and more true emperors. They were at a disadvantage and couldn't make it out. Attack the others from the Hung clan. He Gao's eyes flashed fiercely as he unleashed a saber attack. It wasn't aimed at the other true emperors but the palaces of the Hung clan. Despicable bastard! A true emperor from the Han clan roared. Two true emperors rushed out to help, but it was too late. He Gao's saberlight was hundreds of miles long. Countless members of the Heng family were annihilated by this saberlight. 100-mile-long crack appeared in the Heng family's palaces and continued forward. He Gao, you court death. The furious true emperors from the Han clan tried to kill He Gao. However, He Gao's expression was ferocious as he unleashed a few more attacks. The true emperors had no choice but to stop his attacks. Normally, true emperors wouldn't attack the weak. However, He Gao wasn't confident this time because of the impending calamity. That's why he acted so recklessly and didn't care about the rules. Since the Han clan's true emperors went to help the others, there was a gap in the encirclement. He Gao and the other true emperors rushed out and rushed towards the He clan. You will pay with your blood, He clan. The true emperor from the Han clan roared. In the distance, Lu Ming sneered. His figure flashed as he headed toward the sacred academy of Yuan Mountain. He didn't need to do anything now since he only needed to watch. A war was inevitable between the two clans. Not long after Lu Ming returned to the sacred academy of Yuan Mountain, in the Heavenly Supreme Alliance, Xinghe held a combat sword and charged toward the Divine Fire Alliance. In the Divine Fire Alliance, he killed the #1 prodigy of the He family, who had a powerful king body. This matter shook the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. The genius from the He clan was in the top 10 of the Sage King ranking. He was the #2 character of the Divine Fire Alliance, but he was killed just like that. No one in the Divine Fire Alliance dared to stop Xinghe. The He clan was in an uproar after hearing the news. The #1 genius of the He clan with a powerful monarch physique and peerless talents. He was the hope of the clan and had a chance to become a grand emperor. But now, he was killed by Xinghe. War. An angry voice came from the He clan. War. The same went for the Han clan. Chapter 1932. The He family and Han family each dispatched several thousand powerhouses. A terrifying great battle broke out in the area between the two families. This battle shook Celestial City. This battle was incomparably tragic. The sun and moon lost their light. That area of Celestial City was razed to the ground. That battle fought for a full day. In the end, both sides suffered heavy losses before retreating separately. It was said that many experts from both sides died in this battle. Even martial emperor powerhouses fell, more than 10. There were even true emperors who fell. In Celestial City, for a moment, the atmosphere was extremely stifling. Because everyone knew that the great battle between the two families would not end like this. On the contrary, it was just the beginning. Sure enough, after this battle, the two families started an all-out war. Both sides sent people to attack each other's industries. Both sides were constantly clashing. At every moment, there were powerhouses being killed. The hatred between both sides already reached an irreconcilable level. The battle escalated more and more. Even true emperors would frequently kill each other. Every day, there were powerhouses falling. This scorching battle fought for a full 3 months. Hung family and He family lost countless powerhouses. However, this did not make both sides stop. Instead, the hatred became even more intense. On this day, a piece of news shook the entire Celestial City, and even the entire Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. The Heng family's great emperor powerhouses challenged the He family's great emperor powerhouses. Half a month later, they would decide the victor at Heavenly Emperor Mountain. A showdown between great emperors shocked the world. Countless people were dumbfounded and extremely shocked. They did not expect that the confrontation between the two families this time would ultimately lead to a showdown between great emperors. Celestial City was the #1 holy land of the Origin Mountain Land's 9 great holy lands. Its strength was the most powerful. And as one of the few strongest forces in Celestial City, the Heng family and He family both had great emperors holding down the fort. And half a month later, the two families' great emperors would face off at Heavenly Emperor Mountain. When Lu Ming heard this news, he was also somewhat astonished. He also did not expect that things would also develop to this extent. However, this was exactly what Lu Ming wanted. Wasn't his original intention to let the He family and Heng family fight each other? Use the blood of the Heng family and He family's people as a sacrifice to the Ice Dragon Valley Master. It was best if a great emperor fell. That way, it would be even more perfect. Lu Ming sneered. A showdown between heavenly emperors was something rarely seen. This matter had alarmed the majority of the major forces in the Primal Mountain. In this half a month, there was an endless stream of experts coming to the Celestial City. They wanted to witness the glory of the Heavenly Emperors. Time flew, and half a month passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, countless people gathered towards the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Normally speaking, when great emperors fought, no one would dare to get close to watch the battle. A martial emperor was too strong. As long as a strand of energy leaked out, it would be disastrous. Only death awaited. Even regular martial emperors would find it hard to survive. However, it was different at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Legend had it that the Heavenly Emperor Mountain was the place where the Heavenly Emperor had attained the Tao. Above it, the Heavenly Emperor's steam engine filled the air. Ordinary people could not climb up the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Even martial emperors would find their cultivation suppressed. Rumor has it that true emperors couldn't fly once they entered the range of the mountain. Only great emperor elite warriors could fly when they entered the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. However, they would be greatly suppressed. The movements from the great battle would also be suppressed and would not cause disastrous consequences. Early in the morning, the sky around the Heavenly Emperor Mountain was filled with countless figures. There were endless people with different levels of cultivation. There were martial emperors, saints, martial emperors, and even true emperors. A battle between great emperors was a rare event. It might be helpful for true emperors. The prodigies of the Origin Mountain Sacred Institution were also led by a few true emperor teachers to the distant void of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Lu Ming and the others were also among them. Hiss! Hiss! At this moment, the void not far from the Heavenly Emperor Mountain suddenly split open. Two openings appeared and two figures stepped out from each of them. The two figures were completely shrouded in endless light. Their appearance could not be seen clearly, but there was a strong and boundless aura that spread out in all directions. Although they were very far away, at this moment, countless people felt as if a divine mountain was pressing down on them. This kind of pressure was as if they were facing the Heavenly Tao. They could not resist. Two great emperors. The great emperors of the He clan and Hung clan had arrived. The two great emperors looked at each other from afar and unleashed an even more shocking aura. "This time I'll kill you." A cold voice was heard. It was full of arrogance like a deity looking down on all living beings. Lu Ming had heard this voice before. It was the great emperor of the Hung clan. He had heard it at the Origin Mountain Sacred Institution and fought with great Emperor Wu Xiang. Boasting shamelessly. "You'll be the one to die." The other figure was the great emperor of the He clan. His voice was deep and filled with endless dominance. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then, the two figures moved at the same time and flew towards the peak of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. In the beginning, their speed was so shocking that many people could not see them clearly. However, as soon as the two entered the range of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, they seemed to be under a terrifying pressure. Their speed rapidly slowed down. The closer they were to the peak, the slower their speed became. In the end, the light on the two figures disappeared and their bodies were revealed in front of everyone. The great emperor of the Han clan was an old man with a gloomy look in his eyes. The great emperor of the He clan appeared to be a middle-aged brawny man. He had a tall and sturdy figure and a domineering aura. Of course, one could not judge the age of people at this level by their appearance. The two great emperors of the Han clan and the He clan were figures that had lived for countless years. The two landed on the peak of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain and faced each other. Then, the two suddenly dashed towards each other and launched a palm attack at the same time. Dong! With a muffled boom, the entire Heavenly Emperor Mountain seemed to shake. Even though Lu Ming and the others were far away, they could feel the violent fluctuations in the space. So terrifying. Is this the power of an elite warrior at the Great Emperor stage? This is the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, yet it could cause such astonishing tremors. Ordinary elite warriors at the Void Emperor stage could only barely resist at the peak of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. They could not even fight. Indeed, the power of the Great Emperor stage is extraordinary. Some people discussed. After the great emperors of the Han and He clan exchanged a move, their bodies retreated slightly. Then they launched another attack at each other. Once again, the two bombarded each other and exploded with astonishing fluctuations. If this happened on the outside, most likely the world would be turned upside down. Next, the two kept exchanging moves. However, they were all ordinary, as if two low-level martial artists were exchanging moves. Their speed was not particularly fast. This made many people look at each other in dismay. Were the fights between great emperors this ordinary? Lu Ming, Qiu Yu, and the rest were also bewildered. They could not tell what was so brilliant about it. Chapter 1933. Don't underestimate this kind of battle. It's the most dangerous. Each move is a collision between the great Tao and the power of the world. It's extremely terrifying. If you're not careful, you'll die. A teacher of the Origin Mountain Holy Court explained to the disciples of the Origin Mountain Holy Court. Great Emperor elite warriors control the great Tao of heaven and earth. Each of their moves is supported by the great Tao and the power of the world. This is inside the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. If it's outside, a casual attack can turn the world upside down and have the power to destroy the world. That teacher continued to explain. Everyone observed carefully. Unfortunately, their realm was too low and they had not stepped into the Great Emperor realm. It was difficult for them to understand the profoundness of the Great Emperor realm. They could only watch the show. Boom! Boom! In the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, the speed of the two's battle became faster and faster. Their expressions also became more solemn. Each time they clashed, terrifying tremors would erupt. The Heavenly Emperor Mountain trembled slightly and the space trembled violently. On top of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, a layer of hazy halo spread out. It was extremely mysterious and locked most of the power inside. Soon, the two great emperors had exchanged hundreds of moves and there was no winner. Then, the two took out their weapons. Great Emperor Hang used a sword, while Great Emperor He used a battle saber. Without a doubt, they were both extremely terrifying Great Emperor weapons. The two continued to fight. However, the two had the same cultivation and combat power. After many moves, there was still no winner. Just as the two were fighting fiercely, suddenly, a figure appeared on the peak of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Everyone was shocked. Yes, initially, there were only two great emperors fighting at the peak of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. How could there be an additional figure? Clearly, this figure did not appear out of thin air. He had been hiding at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. As soon as this figure appeared, he launched an attack at Great Emperor He. His attack was extremely violent and was not weaker than the two great emperors. Clearly, this was also a great emperor. Everyone was shocked. How could a great emperor suddenly appear at the peak of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Luo, it's you. You're so despicable. Great Emperor He roared angrily. Luo. Many people were shocked. There was only one great emperor with the surname Luo in the Origin Mountain Holy Land. That was the great emperor of the ancient Sun Holy Land and Daluo Heaven sect. Lu Ming's eyes were also shining. The great emperor who suddenly appeared was probably the great emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect, Luo Zongqiong's grandfather. Clearly, the great emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect had been hiding at the peak of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain for a long time. He was waiting for an opportunity to join hands with the great emperor of the Hang family to kill the great emperor of the He family. I told you, you're the one who's going to die today. The great emperor of the Han clan said coldly as he slashed his sword towards the great emperor of the He clan. Facing two experts of the same level, great emperor He clan was no match at all. He was instantly at a disadvantage. Not good. Han clan, you are despicable and shameless. The He family's people roared angrily. Their faces were incomparably ugly, feeling extremely worried. If the He clan's great emperor perished, it would be a disaster for the He clan. Without a great emperor, they wouldn't be able to fight against the Hang family. They would be annihilated by the Hang family. The He family, which had been passed down for countless years, would be annihilated. All is fair in war. Don't you know that? The Hang family's experts sneered. They were overjoyed as they hoped that their great emperor could kill the great emperor of the He clan. In that case, the Hang family would become even more powerful in the future. Everyone looked at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain anxiously. If a great emperor perished, it would involve a lot of people. It would change the structure of the Heavenly Emperor city drastically. The great emperor of the He clan tried his best to resist. However, he was no match for the two great emperors. Soon, the great emperor of the He clan was hit by a punch from the great emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect. His body shook and his face flushed red. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Whoosh! The great emperor of the Hang family slashed his sword, but the great emperor of the He clan barely dodged it. Dang! The great emperor of the Hang family roared as his sword moved faster. The great emperor of the He clan was injured and it was getting harder for him to dodge. Puff! After a few more moves, the great emperor of the He clan finally couldn't dodge it. He was slashed in the chest by the great emperor of the Han family. A long sword wound appeared and his entire body was almost split into two halves. The great emperor's blood splattered all over the peak of the heavenly emperor mountain. The great emperor of the He clan roared angrily. He wanted to retreat, but the Daluo Heaven sect blocked his way. He roared angrily and unwillingly. If they weren't at the heavenly emperor mountain, everything about them would be suppressed. If they were outside the heavenly emperor mountain, the two great emperors together might not be able to keep him here. With his strength he could escape without worry. However, it was different here at the heavenly emperor mountain. He understood that he had fallen into a trap. Clearly, it was the other party's scheme to fight with the great emperor of the Han family at the heavenly emperor mountain. Great Emperor! People of the He clan cried out in grief and fear. Could it be that today, the great emperor of the He clan would fall here? People of the Han family were overjoyed. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Buzz! Suddenly, the heavenly emperor mountain shook violently. Endless resplendent lights filled the air. Boom! Boom! Next, an astonishing explosion sound emerged from the heavenly emperor mountain as gravel flew everywhere. What's going on? Many people's expression changed drastically. Why was there such a sudden change at the heavenly emperor mountain? Such a thing had never happened before. It's the blood of a great emperor. The great emperor's blood has been absorbed by the heavenly emperor mountain. Some true emperor figures roared. With their sharp eyes and keen spiritual senses, they had discovered this despite being far away. Inwardly, everyone was shocked. It was because of the blood of a great emperor. However, why would the blood of a great emperor cause such a change at the heavenly emperor mountain? Boom! 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 At this moment, 3 waves of terrifying presence emerged from the heavenly emperor mountain. It was the presence of 3 great emperors. Previously, the presence of the great emperors had been completely suppressed by the heavenly emperor mountain. Now, it seemed that the heavenly emperor mountain had lost its suppressive effect. Get lost! Great emperor of the He clan gave a long roar as he unleashed his terrifying power. He slashed out with his blade and sliced open the vast sky. A space crack of unknown length appeared in the sky. Great emperor of the He clan transformed into a wave of blade light and dashed into the space crack. Don't even think about leaving. The great emperor of the Han clan and the great emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect chased after great emperor of the He clan and dashed into the space crack. Instantly, terrifying fluctuations erupted from the void space inside the space crack. Boom boom boom. The heavenly emperor mountain continued to shake as the radiance became more resplendent. In the end, the radiance condensed into a figure. This figure wore a white robe and looked extremely young. He seemed to be a young man in his 30s. He had a majestic figure and a handsome face. He had the temperament to swallow the world and was unparalleled in his generation. He only stood there as if he was the only one in the world. Heavenly! Heavenly Emperor! Could he be the Heavenly Emperor? Many people's voices trembled. Selah! The space crack appeared again as the figure of the great emperor of the Han clan appeared. His expression was somewhat gloomy as he looked at the Heavenly Emperor's shadow above the Heavenly Emperor mountain with surprise. Next, the great emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect also appeared beside him. Selah! Chapter 1934. With the appearance of the 3 great emperors, clearly the great emperor of the Han clan and the great emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect could not do anything to the great emperor of the He clan. Once the suppression of the heavenly emperor mountain was gone, it was indeed difficult for 2 great emperors of the same level to kill another great emperor in the outside world, unless the difference in strength was too great. Seeing that the great emperor of the He clan was fine, everyone from the He clan breathed a sigh of relief and felt relieved. The 3 great emperors all looked at the shadow in the sky. The shadow of the heavenly emperor. The great emperor of the Han clan spoke with a solemn expression, yet full of expectation. At this moment, above Lu Ming and the others, there was a wave of space fluctuations, and a figure appeared out of nowhere. Lu Ming and the others were shocked. This person was Great Emperor Wu Xiang of the Yuan Mountain Saint Court. Just when the teachers and students of the Yuan Mountain Saint Court were about to salute, Great Emperor Wu Xiang waved his hand and motioned everyone not to be overly courteous. At this moment, the figure in the sky was becoming more and more solid. Everyone was shocked. Could it be that the Heavenly Emperor was about to be resurrected? Or was this just a mark left behind by the Heavenly Emperor when he was in seclusion? Everyone guessed that today's matter was beyond their expectations. Whoosh! Just when the shadow of the Heavenly Emperor had solidified to the extreme, his figure suddenly flew towards the Heavenly Emperor Mountain and disappeared into it. Boom! In the next moment, with a shocking roar, the entire Heavenly Emperor Mountain exploded. The majestic Heavenly Emperor Mountain exploded directly. Then, from the bottom of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, a light pillar rushed out and pierced the sky. "That's a flower!" someone exclaimed. Below the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, a light pillar rushed to the sky. In the middle of the light pillar, a flower emerged. This flower did not seem to have bloomed yet. It only had the appearance of a flower bud and looked like a lotus. Everyone was surprised. What was going on? This flower is a shadow, not a real entity. Look, there's a cave below. It keeps going down. The strange movement of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain caused a commotion in all directions. Lu Ming fixed his eyes and looked. Indeed, the flower in the sky was not a real entity, but a projection of a shadow. Originally, there was a cave below the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. That light pillar rushed out of this cave. Could it be that cave there was some treasure? The Heavenly Emperor Mountain had always suppressed this treasure? Thinking of this, many people's eyes burned with passion. If it was a treasure, it would definitely be a treasure that even the celestial emperors would value. Even the great emperors could not remain calm. With a flash, the great emperors of the Heng family, Daluo Heaven sect, He family, and Wu Xiang appeared above the cave at the same time. Great Emperor Heng glanced at Great Emperor He coldly but didn't say anything. The Heavenly Emperor Mountain had exploded. Without the suppression of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, he knew he could not kill the Great Emperor of the He clan. The four martial emperors looked down at the cave below and were shocked. Everyone's hearts were itching. Even the Great Emperor revealed a surprised expression. Just what was below the cave? Everyone wanted to go and take a look personally, but with the Great Emperor there, no one dared to go. If he angered the Great Emperor, only death awaited him. This is the world left behind by the Celestial the Arch. It should belong to my Heng clan. Please leave. The Heng family glanced at Emperor He family and Emperor Wu Xiang. What a joke. We don't know if it was left behind by the Celestial the Arch. Besides, even if it was left behind by the Celestial the Arch, what does it have to do with your Heng clan? Don't say you're the descendant of the Celestial the Arch. You are. Great Emperor He family sneered. What do you mean? Cold light flashed across the eyes of Great Emperor Heng. It's simple. You Heng clan can't take this place. Great Emperor He family said coldly. Then he looked at Emperor Wu Xiang and said, Wu Xiang, what do you think? The Celestial the Arch has fallen for many years. After so many years, nothing can be explained. Thus the treasure left behind by the Celestial the Arch should belong to the fated ones. Emperor Wu Xiang said. His meaning was simple. Since the Celestial the Arch had fallen for so many years, who could say for sure whether the Heng clan was the descendant of the Celestial the Arch? After such a long time, the treasure left behind by the Celestial the Arch should belong to the fated ones. Great Emperor Heng's expression turned ugly. Even with the help of the Great Emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect, he could not do anything to Great Emperor He and Emperor Wu Xiang. Moreover, the Saint Court of Origin Mountain was built by 3 great emperors. Now that the other great emperors had not appeared, he was very wary. Then, let's rely on our abilities. Great Emperor Heng said coldly. Then, he suddenly rushed into the cave below. The Great Emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect, Great Emperor He and Emperor Wu Xiang also rushed into the cave below at the same time. Their figures disappeared into the cave. The others looked at each other. Since the 4 great emperors had gone down, the others did not dare to follow. They could only wait with their eyes wide open. Boom, 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 boom. At this moment, a violent roar came from the underground cave. There seemed to be an endless gale blowing over there. The light beam that rushed out was even brighter. Then, 4 figures rushed out from the cave. No, they did not rush out by themselves. They seemed to have been blown out by the gale. Everyone was shocked. What was in the cave that could blow great emperors out? Moreover, there were 4 great emperors. It was too terrifying. The 4 great emperors stood in the sky with gloomy faces. After a while, Great Emperor Heng seemed to be unwilling to give up. He rushed down again, but he was still blasted out after a while. You go down and take a look. Great Emperor Heng pointed at a true emperor of the Heng clan. You come with me. Great Emperor He looked at a true emperor of the He clan. Emperor Wu Xiang also called for a true emperor of the Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. The three true emperors flew forward and rushed into the cave. However, not long after, they were blasted out by a force just like the four great emperors before them. Next, the great emperors called for Void Emperor, who was a minor emperor, but he was also blasted out. Then, they called for a few more boundary emperors to go down. However, these boundary emperors were not blasted out this time. Instead, they blocked the force from below. It seemed that the force in the cave would change according to the cultivation of the one who went down. The stronger one's cultivation was, the stronger the power in the cave would be. What's in the cave? Why are the great emperors so concerned about it? Many people were itching to find out. Great emperors, there seems to be a force below that is blocking us. We can't go in. A boundary emperor of the Han clan reported to the great emperor of the Han clan. Everyone pricked up their ears to listen. This lotus has 9 petals. Each petal represents a world. The lotus has not bloomed yet, so it's not time to go in. Emperor Wu Xiang said. He did not hide anything and his voice spread far and wide. Everyone was shocked. Could there be a small world below the cave? Gather all the experts below the martial emperor level in the Han clan. Chapter 1935. The great emperor of the Han clan ordered to gather all the experts below the martial emperor realm and left. After that, great emperor He of the He clan gave the same order. He gathered all the experts below the martial emperor realm in the He clan and left. Then, great emperor Wu Xiang and the great emperor of the Daluo Heaven sect also left. Let's go and have a look. After the great emperor left, the others could no longer suppress their curiosity and rushed to the top of the cave. For a moment, the sky was filled with countless figures. Lu Ming and the others also followed the crowd and flew to the sky to look down. That is, Lu Ming and the others were shocked when they saw it. There was a very big cave on the ground. No one knew how deep it was. In the cave, there was a bright light spreading out. In the deepest part of the cave, there was a lotus. This lotus was still in the bud state and had not bloomed. Looking at it carefully, there were 9 petals. It was obvious that the lotus in the air was a projection of this lotus. Everyone could not help but think of the words of great Emperor Wu Xiang. The lotus had 9 petals, which represented 9 worlds. Now that the lotus had not bloomed, they could not enter for the time being. The 9 petals of the lotus represented 9 worlds? Was this the world left behind by the heavenly emperor? Everyone's imagination ran wild. Then, they remembered that only those below the martial emperor realm could enter. I don't believe it. Some empty emperors and even true emperors flew into the cave. However, when they entered the cave, there seemed to be a terrifying energy that blasted all the emperors out. Only those who were below the martial emperor realm were able to stabilize themselves. However, when they approached the lotus, they were blocked by a powerful force. Countless people went down to test it, but the result was the same. Everyone knew that they still had to wait for the moment when the lotus bloomed. Lu Ming and the others did not go down to test it. Since the great emperor had said that there was no need for them to go down, they just had to wait patiently. Then, they followed the teachers of the Origin Mountain Saint Academy and returned to the Origin Mountain Saint Academy. Following that, the news spread to the entire Yuan Mountain at a terrifying speed. The heavenly emperor might have left behind a relic, which shocked countless people. One by one, powerful forces arrived at the celestial city. The forces of the other 8 great holy lands, as well as some ancient clans, had also sent their experts over. Ancient Moon Sacred Ground, Phoenix Palace, Divine Elephant Sect, Wan Clan, Heavenly Wolf Pagoda, Golden Crow Tribe, and so on all sent their experts. They were led by true emperors and below martial emperors. This was most likely a relic left behind by the Celestial the Arch. Everyone wanted a piece of the pie. Since emperor-level experts could not descend, the best choice was a quasi-emperor. As time passed, more and more experts arrived at the celestial city. As time passed, the lotus flower slowly bloomed. 1 month later, when the lotus was about to fully bloom, countless people gathered in this area. At a glance, it was impossible to tell how many people there were. Among them, most of them were at the Sage Realm and the Quasi-Emperor Realm. Scram! A loud shout rang out as a group of experts burst forth with shocking auras. The crowd couldn't help but open up a path for them. They were from the Han clan with more than 100 people led by several true emperors. Although the Hung clan was domineering, many people didn't dare to say anything. The Hung clan was a great emperor's force. With a great emperor in charge, who would dare to offend them? The Han clan is really domineering. A cold voice rang out. Then, the He clan arrived as well. They said that the Han clan was domineering, but they were the same. With a true emperor leading the way, the crowd forcibly opened up a path. The Han clan and the He clan were at daggers drawn. Then, experts from the Daluo Heaven sect arrived as well, followed by several powerful ancient clans. The teacher of the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain also arrived with a group of young geniuses. Hiss! Hiss! Suddenly, the space near the cave was torn apart. A few figures appeared there, emitting terrifying auras. This was the aura of a great emperor. Everyone couldn't help but step back. The great emperors were observing the situation of the lotus below. Half a day later, the lotus finally bloomed. Let's go down, the great emperor of the Han clan said. Suddenly, the experts of the Han clan rushed down the cave. Of course, they were all below the martial emperor realm. Most of them were quasi-emperors and absolute saints. Then, the experts of the He clan also rushed down the cave, along with the experts of the Daluo Heaven sect. Among the experts of the Daluo Heaven sect, Lu Ming saw Luo Congqiong and Luo Pokong. Let's go too! The people of the other forces roared, then gathered together and rushed into the cave. The great emperors didn't stop them. One by one, they disappeared into the cave. You guys go too. The teacher of the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain looked at Lu Ming and the others. In fact, there weren't many geniuses following the teacher of the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. Most of the forces had arrived. Those geniuses returned to their respective forces and entered the cave with their respective forces. Only a few of them stayed in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. Lu Ming and the others nodded and rushed into the cave. The cave was huge. Countless figures flew down at the same time, but it didn't seem crowded. Lu Ming and the others looked down and found that many people's bodies shrank rapidly when they approached the lotus. Then, they rushed toward one of the petals and disappeared into the petals. It seemed that it was random. It wasn't that you could go to whichever petal you wanted. Instead, you entered a random petal. Many people from the major forces flew over and entered the different petals. Suddenly, Lu Ming felt that a crisis was coming. Whoosh! A terrible golden light came toward Lu Ming from his right. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed, and he blasted a punch to the right. Boom! With a boom, the golden light was defeated by him. Then, Lu Ming saw a group of people in golden robes, looking at Lu Ming coldly. It's the experts of the Golden Crow clan. On the side, Huang Ling said. The Golden Crow clan. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with murderous intent. These were obviously the absolute saints of the Golden Crow clan, and they were even boundary emperors. The person who had launched a sneak attack on Lu Ming earlier was a perfected absolute saint. The experts of the Golden Crow clan attacked a junior. If you want to fight, let's fight. Next to Huang Ling, an elder said coldly. This elder was an expert of the Phoenix Palace. The experts of the Phoenix Palace and the Divine Elephant sect came here with Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming, you killed the crown prince of the Golden Crow clan. This debt must be settled. I hope you don't run into us when you enter the world left behind by the Heavenly Emperor. An expert of the Golden Crow clan said coldly. I hope he'll always be so lucky. Another cold voice sounded. It didn't come from the Golden Crow clan, but another force. The people of the Wan clan. Chapter 1936. I'll kill every one of you I see. Lu Ming said coldly as he looked at the experts from the Golden Crow clan, the Wan family, and the Sky Wolf Pagoda. Let's wait and see who's going to die. An expert from the Golden Crow clan said coldly. Then, the group of people sped up and rushed down. The other forces did the same. They rushed down and entered different petals. However, Lu Ming noticed one thing. Out of the 9 petals, there was one that no one had entered. It seemed that only 8 petals could enter. Soon, Lu Ming and the others approached the lotus. When they got close to the lotus, a strong force acted on them. This force was a kind of gravitational force. It was extremely strong and difficult to resist. Their bodies were pulled to different petals. Autumn Moon, Luo Tianyi, Huang Ling, Huang Li, and the others separated from Lu Ming and entered different petals. Swoosh! As for Lu Ming, he landed on one of the petals. Brother Lu Ming, I want to go with you. Chirp chirp. Bubbles' voice was heard. She had originally flown to another petal. However, Bubbles used the law of space and time to break free from the gravitational force. She rushed to Lu Ming's side and entered the petal with Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt the world spinning. The next moment, he appeared in a dense forest. Bubbles is gone. Lu Ming looked around and found that Bubbles was not beside him. Lu Ming guessed that one would appear in different places randomly after entering the world of petals. What is this place? Let's fly up and see. Lu Ming pondered. His figure soared into the sky and he flew into the sky. Once he was high in the sky, Lu Ming was stunned. He realized that there were many figures in the sky. Obviously, they were people like him who had entered this place from the outside. This is an island. Then, Lu Ming looked down. Standing tens of thousands of meters in the sky, he could clearly see that there was an island below them. Beyond the island was the endless sea. Swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, several figures flashed and surrounded Lu Ming. Powerful and terrifying auras shrouded Lu Ming. Ha ha ha, Lu Ming. I didn't expect you to be in the same territory as us. Today will be the day you die. One of them laughed loudly. Murderous intent was extremely strong. This person was an expert from the Golden Crow clan, a quasi-emperor. The others beside him were not from the Golden Crow clan. They were from Sky Wolf Tower, the Wan clan, and the Ziji sect. There were 5 of them in total. 2 were at the pinnacle of the Absolute Saint Realm, 2 were at the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm, and 1 was a boundary emperor. A few seniors are actually dealing with a youngster from the younger generation. Interesting. Interesting. Everyone in the surroundings cast sidelong glances at Lu Ming. However, no one recognized Lu Ming. This time, the people who had entered this place were all absolute saints and quasi-emperors from different forces. They came from different sacred grounds and different forces. Very few of them had seen Lu Ming before. Naturally, these people had never seen Lu Ming before. A young man like you has also entered this place. You're overestimating yourself. An elder said, stroking his long beard. He was a quasi-emperor. This time, almost all the people who had entered the world of the Lotus were absolute saints. There were even many quasi-emperors. A young man like him wanting to enter and fight for treasures? Wasn't he overestimating himself? Very good. Lu Ming swept his gaze and spoke calmly. Very good. The expert from the Golden Crow clan was stunned. You're here to die. Very good. Lu Ming added. Ha ha ha, we're here to die. Young man, you really don't know how to be humble. Let's see how you're going to kill us. An expert from the Wan clan laughed. He was at the peak of the Absolute Saint realm. His acupoints lit up, and sacred weapons flew out. Terrifying battle weapon chi gathered and attacked. You're not very good at the 10,000 weapon art. Lu Ming said coldly. An Absolute Saint weapon appeared in his hand. He slashed out, and the battle weapon chi of the expert from the Wan clan collapsed. The sword light didn't stop as it slashed down. Puh! The expert from the Wan clan couldn't fight back at all. He was cut in half by Lu Ming's sword and died. Lu Ming waved his hand and put away the saint weapon and storage ring of the expert from the Wan clan. How is this possible? The others were shocked. Their eyes widened. A peak absolute saint expert was killed by Lu Ming with a single slash. His strength was too terrifying. The experts from the Golden Crow clan and Sky Wolf Pagoda gasped in disbelief. It had only been a short while, but Lu Ming was already able to kill a perfected absolute saint. This speed of improvement was too shocking. The people from the other forces were also dumbfounded. He's so young, but he's so strong. Who is he? Could he be a peerless genius from the Origin Mountain Academy? They didn't dare to underestimate Lu Ming anymore. Let's work together and kill him. The expert from the Golden Crow clan shouted. A river of laws appeared on his body, forming a terrifying attack that attacked Lu Ming. At the same time, the other few people also launched an attack on Lu Ming. The combat sword in Lu Ming's hands flew out and transformed into a destructive sword gleam, killing everything. Puh! Lu Ming's sword light pierced through the head of a peak absolute saint expert. Afterward, Lu Ming circulated the hell-suppressing heaven skill and punched out continuously with both fists. Illusory shadows of the hell-suppressing monument appeared one by one, suppressing everyone. The remaining 2 absolute saints couldn't fight back at all under the suppression of the prison-suppressing steel. With a cry, Their bodies were torn apart. Only the Boundary Emperor could resist. Boom! Boom! The Boundary Emperor from the Golden Crow clan's River of Laws turned into terrifying flames and a few suns appeared. They collided with the suppressing Hellsteel's shadow and blasted it apart. However, his body shook violently and he continued to retreat. His eyes were filled with shock. He was a Boundary Emperor who had comprehended a type of law to the point of perfection and formed a River of Laws. He was one step away from becoming a martial emperor. Given his cultivation level, not only was he unable to suppress Lu Ming, but he also vaguely felt that his River of Laws was about to be broken in the previous few collisions. How can this little bastard be so strong? The Golden Crow Boundary Emperor gasped and suddenly turned to run. He had a feeling that if he continued to fight, he would die here. You want to leave now? Do you think you can? Chaotic Calamity Finger. Lu Ming's cold voice sounded. He stretched out a hand and pointed at the void. Wind and clouds gathered in the sky and a huge finger formed and pressed down on the Golden Crow Boundary Emperor. The Boundary Emperor from the Golden Crow clan roared and transformed into his true form. He spread his wings that were hundreds of meters wide. The River of Laws surrounded him and he unleashed his strongest attack toward the Chaotic Calamity Finger. Boom! Chapter 1937. The Golden Crow Subthearch was blasted off the island by Lu Ming's Chaotic Tribulation Finger. His huge body created a huge pit that was thousands of meters wide on the island. Whoosh! In the next moment, the Golden Crow Subthearch rushed into the sky, wanting to escape into the distance. At this moment, he was terrified. He realized that he was no match for Lu Ming at all. The attack just now had directly pierced through his lower river, causing him to be severely injured. The vitality of a subthearch is really tenacious. However, you must die today. Lu Ming said coldly. His figure rushed out like lightning, chasing after the Golden Crow subthearch. Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the great perfection absolute saint. As his mastery of the Chaotic Tribulation Finger deepened, his battle prowess also became stronger. He originally thought that with his battle prowess, he could easily kill a subthearch. Now it seemed that it was not that easy. The battle prowess of a subthearch was stronger than he had imagined. However, it would only take a little more effort. Lu Ming's speed was astonishing. He quickly approached the Golden Crow subthearch. Chaotic Tribulation Finger. When he was close to the Golden Crow subthearch, Lu Ming used the Chaotic Tribulation Finger again. The huge Chaotic Tribulation Finger was like the finger of a deity. It pressed down from the sky. The scene was extremely shocking. The Golden Crow subthearch was like a fly. He had nowhere to hide under the Chaotic Tribulation Finger. He could only use all his strength to resist. However, when the Chaotic Tribulation Finger landed, he screamed and was blasted off the island. The sky was filled with Golden Crow feathers. This time, Lu Ming would not let the Golden Crow subthearch escape. He appeared above the Golden Crow subthearch. A supreme sacred weapon spear appeared in his hand. He swooped down and attacked the Golden Crow subthearch as one with the spear. The Golden Crow subthearch struggled frantically. He was filled with indignation, but the result was already decided. Poof! The spear pierced through the Golden Crow subthearch's head and destroyed his soul. A subthearch was killed by Lu Ming. Everyone's eyes were very grave. This was a fiend who could even kill a subthearch. It was too shocking. He used the law of primal chaos. I know who he is. He is Lu Ming, the son of primal chaos. Someone exclaimed as he recognized Lu Ming. It's him. I heard that this person is the Origin Mountain Saint. He pulled out the Heavenly Thearch's sword and united the kings fought the Star River. Later on, he founded the Dragon Alliance. So it's him. No wonder he has such strong battle prowess. Voices filled with surprise rang out one after another. Yuan Mountain's sacred courtyard gathered the strongest geniuses of the entire Yuan Mountain. It was the center of attention. Some of the powerful geniuses inside were noticed by many forces. After all, if these geniuses didn't die, they would definitely become the overlords of the Yuan Mountain area in the future. Lu Ming put away the storage rings of the Golden Crow Quasi-Emperor and the rest and continued to fly above the island. The others also collected themselves and began to observe their surroundings. After Lu Ming flew around, he did not meet anyone he knew. It seems that only a small part of the people who entered this petal world appeared on this island. The others should be in other places. Lu Ming thought. Lu Ming discovered that there was no one living on this island. It was a lush forest and there were some weak and small demonic beasts living there. It seems that if I want to know the situation of this world, I must leave here first. I wonder if there are people living in this world? Lu Ming's imagination ran wild. Then, he flew into the distance and into the vast sea. The world of the lotus was sealed under the heavenly the Arch mountain. It should be related to the heavenly the Arch. If he could get some of the treasures left by the heavenly the Arch, it would definitely be an unprecedented opportunity. The others circled around the island and left one after another, flying towards the boundless sea. Lu Ming turned into a ray of light and flew on the sea at an astonishing speed. During this time, he saw huge sea beasts appear in the sea. However, most of them did not have high cultivation. The strongest sea beast that Lu Ming had seen was only at the Bright Sage realm. Lu Ming did not know if he was unlucky or something else. He flew all the way and did not see the next island. This world was bigger than Lu Ming had imagined. Lu Ming flew for 7 days. He did not know how long he had flown. At this moment, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. A huge island appeared in front of him. Looking from afar, this island was extremely majestic. It was much bigger than the previous island. Lu Ming flew toward the island. When he got close, Lu Ming heard a loud shout coming from a direction. "Someone's here." Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he flew toward the sound. Not long after, he saw an army riding on strange beasts. They were galloping on the ground with a majestic aura. The ground was constantly shaking. Most of them are at the spiritual god realm. Some of them are at the martial monarch realm. Lu Ming scanned with his spiritual sense and found out the general situation of the cultivation of this army. Tens of thousands of soldiers galloped back and forth on the open ground. Their auras intersected and converged into a flood dragon that roared at the sky. With Lu Ming's experience, it was not difficult to see that this was an army training. Lu Ming strolled in the air and looked around. He found that there was a huge army camp nearby. "Stop right there. Who are you?" Suddenly, a loud shout was heard. A few figures appeared in front of Lu Ming and blocked Lu Ming's path. "Everyone, I'm just passing by. I want to find someone to ask for some information." Lu Ming cupped his fists and said with a smile, "Asking for information? I think you're a spy. Men, take him down and bring him to Mr. Yen." A middle-aged man with a gloomy expression waved his hand. A few figures in armor went forward and surrounded Lu Ming. A cold, murderous intent encapsulated Lu Ming's figure. Lu Ming shook his head. These people were only around the 7th layer martial dominator realm. Lu Ming could kill them with a single thought. These people's cultivation is too weak to pose any threat to me. Why don't I pay Mr. Yen a visit and find out more about this world? Lu Ming did not resist as the thought crossed his mind. "I'll go with you. Bring him away." The middle-aged man waved his hand and led the way. Soon, they arrived at a military camp and walked into a huge military tent. A few figures were standing on both sides of the tent. Lu Ming scanned them with his spiritual sense and discovered that their cultivation was at the half-martial sacred realm. One of them had even reached the lesser success stage of the sacred realm. A young man in a luxurious robe sat at the top of the tent. His eyes were cold as he looked down at Lu Ming. "Mr. Yen, this man has suddenly barged into the camp. I suspect that he's a spy sent by another country to spy on us. I've brought him here for you to deal with." Chapter 1938. The young man lay on his side on the seat. He picked up a glass of wine and took a sip. He then casually glanced at Lu Ming and said, "Since he is a spy, why did you bring him here? Just kill him." After saying this, he waved his hand. "Yes." The middle-aged man received the order and walked toward Lu Ming with a cold gaze. "Wait," Lu Ming said. These people wanted to kill him without any explanation, leaving him speechless. The middle-aged man halted his steps and stared coldly at Lu Ming. "Kid, what else do you have to say?" "I've already said that I'm not a spy. I'm just passing by and would like to ask some questions." Lu Ming explained helplessly. "Nonsense. Everyone in the Bright Flame Country knows that this is the place where the godly serpent army is stationed. How dare you say you're just passing by? What a joke." The middle-aged man snapped coldly. "What's the point of talking nonsense with a spy? Take him away and kill him," young Master Yen said impatiently from above. The others on both sides wore a faint smile on their faces as they stared at Lu Ming. It was a look of superiority, as if they were looking at an ant. The middle-aged man's expression changed instantly as he wore a ferocious expression and said, "Kid, kneel down at once." He took a step forward and appeared beside Lu Ming. His claws were like that of an eagle's claw as he grabbed at Lu Ming's shoulder. Lu Ming did not dodge the attack. He stood there without moving. The middle-aged man's claw accurately grabbed Lu Ming's shoulder. A powerful force burst out and entered Lu Ming's body, trying to force Lu Ming to kneel down. However, Lu Ming did not move. Even his expression did not change. The middle-aged man's expression changed. He felt as if his claws were grabbing onto a piece of iron. "Kneel down at once." The middle-aged man let out a roar as his hair danced wildly and his robe puffed up. He fully unleashed his cultivation of the 9th-layer martial dominator realm and inserted a tremendous force into Lu Ming's body. But Lu Ming still stood there, motionless. A mere 9th-layer martial dominator realm cultivator was no different from an ordinary cultivator in Lu Ming's eyes. Even if Lu Ming were to stand still and allow the man to kill him, the man would not be able to harm even a single strand of his hair. How could the man possibly make him move? Above the tent, young Master Yen stopped drinking and looked at Lu Ming in surprise. The people on both sides of the tent also looked at Lu Ming in surprise. To be able to remain unmoved under the might of a 9th-layer martial emperor and have a body as sturdy as a mountain. His cultivation was definitely not weak. "Little bastard, kneel down." The middle-aged man let out a roar with a reddened face. He could not even force Lu Ming to kneel down in front of young Master Yen. This would surely leave a bad impression in young Master Yan's mind, as it was related to his future. He could not wait to tear Lu Ming into pieces. "Interesting, Lu Quan, you may leave now." Young Master Yen waved his hand. The middle-aged man, who was Lu Quan, glared at Lu Ming murderously and withdrew from the tent. "It seems like you're quite capable. Kneel down now and tell me who you are. Perhaps I'll leave your corpse intact." Young Master Yen said calmly. His tone was still imperious, as if leaving Lu Ming's corpse intact would be a great blessing to Lu Ming. Lu Ming frowned slightly and said, "I told you, I'm just passing by and would like to gather some information. Since I'm not welcome here, I'll be leaving." With that, Lu Ming turned around and was about to leave. "How bold! How dare you! Ignorant dog, how dare you act like this in front of young Master Yen? Kneel down now." The men on both sides of the tent shouted. Their powerful auras shrouded Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming continued to walk out as if he did not hear them. Above the tent, young Master Yan's face darkened. Lu Ming dared to treat him with such an attitude. He was courting death. "Take him down, but don't kill him yet. Break his limbs first." Young Master Yen said coldly. "Yes." On both sides of the military tent, a few half-saints received the order. In a flash, they surrounded Lu Ming. "Kid, kneel down and kowtow to young Master Yen immediately, then destroy your cultivation. Perhaps young Master Yen will be kind enough to spare your dog life." Lu Quan hooted from the side. Lu Ming frowned again. Originally, Lu Ming did not care about these people at all because they were too weak. Lu Ming did not bother to lower himself to their level. However, they kept pushing him, which made Lu Ming a little unhappy. "Kid, kneel down now." A half-saint shouted and was about to attack. "Stop." At this moment, a cold shout was heard. Then, a group of people walked in from outside the tent. The person in the lead was actually a young woman. This woman was very beautiful. She wore a fiery red armor, which accentuated her curvaceous figure vividly. Moreover, she was very heroic. Her temperament was completely different from the women Lu Ming had met. Behind the young woman, there were 4 strong men. Each of them had a strong aura and was full of killing intent. They were obviously fierce generals who had been on the battlefield for a long time. Seeing this woman, the half-saints' expressions changed. They all bowed and saluted. "Greetings, Marshal Tianjiao. Stand down." The young woman's gaze swept across the half-saints like lightning. The half-saints looked at young Master Yen with a troubled expression. Young Master Yen waved his hand, and the half-saints retreated. "Tianjiao, you're here." Young Master Yen smiled and stood up from his seat. "Yen Song, this is my Divine WYRM army. What right do you have to kill people in my Divine WYRM army?" The young woman looked at Yen Song with bright eyes. Yen Song's eyes darkened. However, in the next moment, he smiled and said, "Tianjiao, this person is a spy. He's here to spy on the military. I didn't inform you. I was going to drag him out and kill him. Spy. The young woman looked at Lu Ming with a trace of murderous intent in her eyes. I'm not a spy. I just happened to pass by. Lu Ming shrugged. How dare you quibble? You're courting death. Tianjiao, I'll get someone to kill this person first. I'll talk to you later. Yen Song scolded. Immediately, a half-saint stepped forward and wanted to take Lu Ming down. Stop. The young woman waved her hand and said, Since he's a spy, all the more I have to interrogate him. All of you stand down. Yes. The 4 strong men who came with the young woman bowed and retreated. And all of you. The young woman looked at Yen Song. Tianjiao, this person has some cultivation. I'm worried about leaving you here alone. Yen Song said. If he can kill me, what's the point of you staying here? The young woman said. She was very confident in herself. She was the marshal of the heavenly WYRM army, and the youngest goddess of war in the country of brightness. If even she couldn't defeat him, what was the point of Yen Song and the others staying here? Chapter 1939. Lu Ming glanced at the young woman. Her cultivation could not be hidden from Lu Ming's eyes. The young woman's cultivation was in the peak bright sacred realm, significantly higher than the others. No wonder she was so confident. Besides, Yen Song's men had referred to her as General Tianjiao. It was likely that her identity was not simple. After the others left, the young woman stared at Lu Ming with glittering eyes and said, Are you really a spy? I'm not. I already told you that I'm only passing by to ask around. Lu Ming shrugged helplessly and explained once again. I believe you. The young woman stared at Lu Ming and said, Do you really believe me that much? It was Lu Ming's turn to be astounded. Because you're very calm. The young woman said, I've been paying attention to you since I came here. You were very calm when facing Yen Song or me. Even when Yen Song said he was going to kill you, you were still calm, as if you weren't worried at all. It's as if you could leave at any time. It's not an act, but a reflection of your true attitude. Oh, is that so? Lu Ming rubbed his nose. It was true that he was not worried about their cultivation, thus he was able to remain calm. A person with such an attitude is definitely not an ordinary person. Besides, I'm practicing the serpent battle flesh, but I can feel a great pressure from you. Your spirit is definitely not ordinary. The young woman's eyes glittered as she stared at Lu Ming, as if she was trying to see through Lu Ming's thoughts. You're so sure that I'm not a spy based on these 2 points? It doesn't seem to be enough. Lu Ming smiled. My instinct is telling me that these 2 points are enough. The young woman said. Instinct? Lu Ming was confused. Yes, a woman's instinct. Don't you know that a woman's instinct is very accurate at times? The young woman said. Lu Ming wore a wry smile. He could not refute that. It was unwise to discuss with a woman whether a woman's intuition was accurate or not. So, I'm very curious. Who are you? Which country are you from? The young woman was still staring at Lu Ming. I've already said that I'm just passing by. In the past, I was cultivating on a deserted island and had just come into being. Lu Ming said casually. Really? A ray of light flashed in the young woman's eyes. Her figure suddenly moved. Like a phantom, she rushed towards Lu Ming. Her speed was astonishing. Her palm chopped towards Lu Ming. Of course, this speed was only for ordinary people. To Lu Ming, this speed was no different from a snail. When the young woman's palm was about to hit Lu Ming's body, Lu Ming raised his hand and gently struck out with his palm. Bang! Lu Ming's palm and the young woman's palm collided. The young woman's delicate body trembled and her figure drifted backward. On the other hand, Lu Ming did not move at all. What a strong cultivation. At your age in the 9 nations of the sea, there are only a handful of people with your cultivation. I know every single one of them, but I don't know anyone like you. It seems that my intuition was right. I'm really curious now. The young woman's eyes shone with a strange light. Didn't I tell you? I just came into being. Of course you don't know me. Lu Ming said. Oh, if that's the case, why don't you stay in the Divine WYRM army? I'm the marshal of the Divine WYRM army, Yuan Tianjiao. The young woman said. Stay here? Impossible. I won't stay here for long. I'll leave soon. Lu Ming shook his head. He had entered this world to look for the heavenly emperor's treasure. He could not stay here for long. You don't have to stay here for long. A short period of time is fine too. You can leave whenever you want. Moreover, didn't you say that you wanted to gather information? Perhaps I can help you, Ruan Tianjiao said. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He pondered for a moment and said, "All right, I'll stay here for the time being." Lu Ming indeed needed to gather information. Ruan Tianjiao seemed to be very powerful in this place. As the marshal of an army, she might be able to provide him with a lot of help. Ruan Tianjiao's face lit up. She had a feeling that Lu Ming was extraordinary. "What's your name?" Ruan Tianjiao asked. "Lu Ming." Lu Ming nodded. "What do you want to ask?" Ruan Tianjiao asked curiously. I want to know where this place is." Lu Ming said. "This entire island is a country called the Bright Flame Country." Ruan Tianjiao said. "What about above? Are there other countries? How big is this world? Are there any ancient ruins?" Lu Ming asked several questions in a row. "You don't even know these?" Ruan Tianjiao was very surprised. "Haven't I been in seclusion? I just came out." Lu Ming touched his nose and said, "There's an introduction to this world in this jade token. Take a look." A jade token appeared in Ruan Tianjiao's hand and she handed it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming took it and scanned it with his spiritual consciousness. He began to read the knowledge in the jade token. After reading it, Lu Ming had a rough idea of what was going on. It turned out that this world was called the Infinite Seas Realm. Most of the territory in this world was the sea. However, there were also countless islands in the sea. Some of the islands were not big and were deserted. They were not suitable for humans to live in. Some of the bigger islands were very wide and suitable for humans to live in. Countless martial artists occupied these islands and formed countries. The Bright Flame Island they were on was a big island. The entire island was a country called the Bright Flame Country. Ruan Tianjiao was one of the 5 marshals of the Bright Flame Country, the marshal of the Divine Wyrm army. As for the ancient ruins you mentioned, there are indeed some in the vast seas realm. When we return to the capital, I'll organize the information about those ruins and give it to you. How about that? Ruan Tianjiao said. How long before you return to the capital? Lu Ming asked. A month. Don't tell me you can't even wait for a month. Sure. Lu Ming nodded. From the introduction just now, the Infinite Seas realm was huge and there were countless islands. It would be too difficult for him to search for them one by one. He did not know how long it would take. With Ruan Tianjiao's help, it would save him a lot of time. Come with me. I'll arrange a military tent for you. You can stay there first. After saying that, Ruan Tianjiao walked out of the tent. Lu Ming followed him. When they walked out of the tent, they saw Yen Song and the others standing not far away from the tent. When they saw Lu Ming coming out with Ruan Tianjiao, they were stunned. Tianjiao, how is it? Is this brat a spy? I suggest that we kill him immediately. Yen Song said. You're mistaken. He's not a spy. Now that I've investigated thoroughly, you can all leave. Ruan Tianjiao waved his hand. What? He's not a spy? Tianjiao, don't be fooled by him. I suggest we cripple him first and then slowly interrogate him. Men, take this kid down. Chapter 1940. Enough. Just as the 2 half-sages walked toward Lu Ming, Ruan Tianjiao shouted coldly. He looked at the 2 half-sages and scolded, Stand down. The 2 half-sages froze. They didn't know whether to move or not. In the end, they looked at Yen Song. Tianjiao, what is the meaning of this? This person is a spy. Yen Song said with an ugly expression. I said that he is not a spy. He is my guest. Also, this is the Divine Wyrm army, not the Yen family. I am the marshal of the Divine Wyrm army. Do you understand? Ruan Tianjiao's eyes were like lightning as he looked at the 2 half-sages. The 2 half-sages had ugly expressions, but they still retreated. Lu Ming, let's go. Ruan Tianjiao nodded at Lu Ming and walked forward. Yen Song's face was extremely gloomy. Ruan Tianjiao took a few steps and stopped. He looked at Yen Song and said, Yen Song, let me tell you, don't call me by my name in the future. We are not that close. After saying that, he ignored Yen Song and strode forward. Damn it, bitch. Yen Song clenched his fists. His face, which could be considered handsome, was twisted with anger. That Yen Song seems to be interested in you. After walking for a while, Lu Ming said with a smile. Humph, he is just relying on the fact that his father is the state preceptor and his sister is the emperor's favorite concubine to do whatever he wants. He is a typical hedonistic son of a rich family. Who knows how many girls he has harmed on a daily basis. Now, he has come to the Divine Wyrm army camp to pester me. Ruan Tianjiao said with a cold face. Lu Ming thought to himself, it seems that Ruan Tianjiao has a bad impression of Yen Song. Lu Ming, Yen Song is a narrow-minded person. You have offended him today. Be careful in the future. Ruan Tianjiao warned. It's fine. Lu Ming smiled faintly, his expression indifferent. A mere Yen Song was not enough to enter his eyes. Soon, they arrived at a military tent. This was where Lu Ming would be staying. Lu Ming, this is a military order. Take it, and you can freely enter the Divine Dragon Army's barracks in the future. Nguyen Tianjiao handed a token to Lu Ming. Thank you. Lu Ming took it and cupped his fists to express his gratitude. He was a little surprised. He had only just met Nguyen Tianjiao, but he trusted him so much? After that, Lu Ming temporarily stayed with the Divine Dragon Army. In the blink of an eye, a few days had passed. Lu Ming and some of Nguyen Tianjiao's subordinates had become rather familiar with each other. As for Lu Ming, he knew more about this world, the Bright Fire Country, and even Nguyen Tianjiao. What surprised Lu Ming was that Ruan Tianjiao's status in Mingyan country was much higher than Lu Ming had imagined. The goddess of war in Mingyan country was what everyone in Mingyan country called Nguyen Tianjiao. Ruan Tianjiao was born in a military family. Her talent was extremely rare. At a young age, her cultivation had reached the great circle of the Bright Saint realm. She stood at the peak of the Bright Saint country and was one of the top experts in the Bright Fire country. She had made great contributions to the Bright Fire country and was known as the goddess of war. She was loved by the people of the Bright Fire country. Yen Song was the son of the state preceptor. His sister was the king's most beloved imperial concubine. Yen Song was lustful by nature and had harmed many women. Now, he had set his sights on Nguyen Tianjiao and often went to the Divine Dragon Army's barracks to harass Nguyen Tianjiao. It seems that the martial strength of this world isn't very high. Lu Ming pondered. According to the information that Lu Ming had gathered, he realized that the martial strength of this world wasn't high. It couldn't be compared to Yuan Lu. Nguyen Tianjiao's cultivation was at the Great Sage realm and she was the most powerful person in Mingyan country. In the blink of an eye, another few days had passed. Lu Ming stood on a mountain peak and looked into the distance. On the flat ground in front of him, an army rode on strange beasts and galloped on the ground. Their murderous intent formed a huge dragon that roared at the sky. It's a good army. They have been through hundreds of battles. Unfortunately, their cultivation is a little weak and their battle formation isn't exquisite enough. Lu Ming had many thoughts in his mind. Soon, a few figures stepped on the air and landed in front of Lu Ming. It was Nguyen Tianjiao and a few of his subordinates. Lu Ming, what do you think of my Divine Dragon Army? Nguyen Tianjiao asked. No. Lu Ming shook his head. No. Nguyen Tianjiao was shocked. Brat, you don't know anything. The Divine Dragon Army is ranked first among the 5 strongest armies in Mingyan country. How dare you say that it's no good? What a joke. One of Nguyen Tianjiao's subordinates was instantly enraged. He widened his eyes and looked as though he wanted to eat Lu Ming alive. No means no. Other than the battle spirit and murderous aura, the rest is useless, especially the battle formation. Lu Ming curled his lips. Since Nguyen Tianjiao wanted to ask him, he would naturally tell the truth. You. A few of the subordinates glared at Lu Ming. They had originally thought that Lu Ming might be a top figure. Now, they felt that Lu Ming was just a boastful person. Lu Ming, my Divine Dragon battle formation is the best battle formation in Mingyan country. How dare you say that it's useless? Nguyen Tianjiao's expression was ugly. He looked at Lu Ming with a tinge of resentment. You asked me yourself. I'm just speaking from the bottom of my heart. Lu Ming touched his nose and was speechless. Does that mean that you have a stronger battle formation? Nguyen Tianjiao continued to look at Lu Ming with a tinge of resentment. I do. Take this and take a look. A jade token appeared in Lu Ming's hand and he threw it to Nguyen Tianjiao. Nguyen Tianjiao took the jade token and scanned it with her spiritual consciousness. She exclaimed, "This is the true dragon battle formation. What a wonderful battle formation!" Lu Ming had indeed thrown the true dragon battle formation to Nguyen Tianjiao. Back when he was helping Lu Ming to fight for the position of crown prince, he had made a few copies of the jade token. This battle formation was useless to Lu Ming, so there was no harm in giving it to Nguyen Tianjiao. Seeing Nguyen Tianjiao lose her composure, the subordinates looked at each other. Could it be that Lu Ming had really given her a battle formation that was stronger than the divine dragon battle formation? Nguyen Tianjiao sank her consciousness into the jade token and studied it carefully as though she was entranced. After a while, she was overjoyed and said, "Train the new battle formation immediately." After saying that, he rushed to the battlefield in a hurry. The 4 generals followed him with a confused look on their faces. In the following days, Nguyen Tianjiao focused on training the new battle formation. If there was anything she did not understand, she would run to Lu Ming to ask him. In just over 10 days, the battle formation training had reached a considerable scale. Roar! The army gathered and activated the true dragon battle formation. A true dragon was formed and roared at the sky. Its might was many times stronger than the divine dragon from before. At this time, Nguyen Tianjiao and her subordinates were full of admiration for Lu Ming. No one suspected that Lu Ming was a spy. How could a spy possibly give them such a brilliant battle formation to cultivate? Nguyen Tianjiao was even more relieved that her intuition was right. Lu Ming was not an ordinary person. Chapter 1941. During this period of time, Yen Song was extremely depressed and furious. In Yen Song's tent, he slammed his palm heavily on the table. The terrifying force of his palm smashed the table into pieces. "Damned bitch!" Yen Song roared. His face was extremely ferocious and filled with murderous intent. During this period of time, every time he looked for Yuan Tianjiao, he was stopped by Yuan Tianjiao's subordinates. They said that Yuan Tianjiao had to train the army and had no time. However, Yen Song had received news that Yuan Tianjiao was hanging out with Lu Ming every day. "Young master, it seems that Yuan Tianjiao is mesmerized by Lu Ming. I wonder what that kid did to Yuan Tianjiao?" "That's right. It's all because of Lu Ming. When I first saw him, I knew that he wasn't a good person. If not for that kid, Yuan Tianjiao might have already thrown himself into young master's arms." Yen Song's subordinates added fuel to the fire, making Yen Song even angrier. His murderous intent was like a knife. "That kid must die," Yen Song said coldly. He continued, "I asked you to keep an eye on that kid. Where is he now?" "Young master, we just received news that the kid has returned to his tent." One of them replied, "Very good. Let's go. I want that kid to die miserably." Yen Song's eyes revealed a sinister look. He led a few of his subordinates and walked toward Lu Ming's tent. Lu Ming was cultivating in the tent when a loud roar came from outside. "Lu Ming, get out here!" A voice filled with murderous intent came, making Lu Ming frown. He knew that it was Yen Song's voice. A sharp light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He got up and walked out of the tent. He saw Yen Song and a few of his subordinates looking coldly at Lu Ming. Some members of the Divine Wyrm army were alarmed and gathered around to watch. However, Yen Song's status was not to be underestimated. No one dared to come over and speak. "Why are you looking for me?" Lu Ming glanced at Lu Ming indifferently. "Kid, I've already given you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Now, you dare to snatch my woman? You're courting death." Yen Song said coldly. "You gave me a chance?" Lu Ming couldn't help but shake his head. At that time, who would give who a chance? "Lowly dog, why don't you take a piss and take a good look at yourself? How dare you go against me? A dog like you should kneel in front of me and beg for mercy. Do you understand? Kill him." Yen Song shouted and waved his hand. Bang! Bang! The 2 half-saint martial artists stepped forward and unleashed their powerful auras. They were about to attack Lu Ming. "Stop, young Master Yen. Lu Ming is the marshal's friend. If the marshal finds out that you're treating Lu Ming like this, I'm afraid you won't be able to explain yourself." Right then, a burly man rushed over and shouted. He was the deputy general of the Divine Flood Dragon Army. He had become quite familiar with Lu Ming during this period of time. Scram! Yen Song shouted angrily and slapped the big man. The big man didn't dare to block and was slapped in the face, causing him to stumble backwards. Who do you think you are? I don't need you to comment on my actions. If you continue to spout nonsense, I'll kill you too. Yen Song glanced coldly at the big man, causing his face to turn pale. Oh no, Yen Song wants to kill Lu Ming. Hurry up and inform the marshal. Some people in the surroundings whispered. Then, someone quickly left to inform Nguyen Tianjiao. I'll return this slap to you tenfold. Lu Ming looked at Yen Song and his face turned cold. Haha, you're boasting shamelessly. Attack. Yen Song laughed. Kid, kneel down first. The two half-saints rushed towards Lu Ming from the left and right. They waved their hands and grabbed Lu Ming. They wanted to make Lu Ming kneel in front of Yen Song before killing him. Since you like to kneel, then, kneel. Lu Ming used the soul illusion technique on the last two words. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to have turned into a demon god in the eyes of the two half-saints. He ruled the world and had absolute control over life and death. The terrifying aura almost scared the two out of their wits. Their bodies didn't seem to listen to them. With a plop, they knelt in front of Lu Ming. Yen Song was dumbfounded. His other two subordinates were also dumbfounded. The people of the Divine Flood Dragon Army were also stunned. What's going on? Why did the two half-saints of Yen Song suddenly kneel in front of Lu Ming? Lu Ming didn't even make a move. He only said a few words and knelt down. These two half-saints were the closest to being a saint. Could it be that Lu Ming was a saint? The crowd guessed. It seems like your two subordinates know that they were wrong and knelt down to beg for mercy. As for you, if you don't kneel down, I might consider sparing you this time. Lu Ming looked at Yen Song indifferently. You son of a bitch. How dare you fight back? You are indeed a spy. Attack and kill him. Yen Song came to his senses and roared furiously. Kill! Beside Yen Song, an old man stepped out and released a terrifying aura. This old man was a bright saint initial success. In the country of bright fire, he was a famous top expert. The old man's aura made many people's faces change drastically. This was a saint, the top expert in the country of brightness. A half-saint couldn't be compared to him. Why isn't the marshal here yet? Some people were anxious and worried about Lu Ming. Although Lu Ming had used some unknown method to make the two half-sages kneel down, the difference between a sage and a half-sage was too great. The old man's aura became stronger and stronger, pressing towards Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming still stood there, motionless, as if he didn't see the old man, deliberately mystifying things. Go to hell. The old man's eyes were ferocious. His hand was like a knife, grabbing towards Lu Ming. Kneel down. At this moment, Lu Ming spoke again. Although his voice wasn't loud, it was like thunder in the old man's ears. It was as if a god was shouting in his ears. At this moment, his soul was under terrifying pressure. He couldn't summon any strength in his body. Plop. Like the previous two half-saints, he knelt down in front of Lu Ming. The scene suddenly quieted down. At this moment, time and space froze. Everyone was dumbfounded. They looked coldly at Lu Ming and then at the old man. A saint had knelt down in front of Lu Ming. A moment ago, he was murderous and wanted to kill Lu Ming. The next moment, he knelt in front of Lu Ming. What was going on? Many people found that they couldn't wrap their heads around it. They had never seen such a thing before. A Saint Realm expert had knelt down without even fighting. What kind of trick was this? Yen Song was also stunned. His mouth was open so wide that he could swallow a dead mouse. His throat seemed to be stuck and he couldn't make a sound for a long time. It seems that your subordinates are very sensible. They realized their mistakes and knelt down to admit their mistakes. Now, why don't you kneel down? Chapter 1942. When Lu Ming spoke, Yen Song reacted as if he had just woken up from a dream. You son of a bitch. What kind of sorcery did you use? How dare you make the sage of the country of light kneel down? You're so bold. Just you wait. This isn't over. Then, Yen Song turned around and was about to leave. Lu Ming was too strange. He could make an expert of the Saint State kneel down. He felt scared and wanted to return to the capital to report to his father. Then, he would send experts to take revenge. Did I allow you to leave? Lu Ming's indifferent voice sounded. He moved and appeared in front of Yen Song. His cold, knife-like gaze swept toward Yen Song, causing Yen Song's expression to change drastically. He could not help but take a few steps back. "What do you want?" Yen Song shouted. "Kneel down and slap your own mouth," Lu Ming said indifferently. "How dare you? Boy, how dare you touch me? Do you know the consequences?" Yen Song shouted. "Oh, what consequences?" Lu Ming said playfully. "Son of a bitch. Listen carefully. My father is the state preceptor and my sister is His Majesty's favorite concubine. How dare you touch me? I'll make sure you die without a burial place and exterminate your 9 generations." Yen Song shouted and stared coldly at Lu Ming. He didn't believe that Lu Ming dared to touch him. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Lu Ming slapped him. The slap was unbelievably fast. Yen Song couldn't dodge it at all. Slap. The crisp sound of the slap echoed in all directions. Yen Song flew out and spun dozens of times in the air. Then he fell heavily on the ground. Half of his face was swollen and all his teeth were knocked out by Lu Ming. Yen Song was stunned. The others were also stunned. Lu Ming really dared to hit Yen Song. His guts were really big. "Ah, son of a bitch. How dare you hit me? I want you dead. I'll skin you alive." Yen Song roared hysterically. Just now, he had come over murderously, wanting to kill Lu Ming. In the end, his subordinates had inexplicably knelt in front of Lu Ming. Now, Lu Ming had actually dared to slap him. This was a great humiliation. He wished he could chop Lu Ming into pieces. "Slap him," Lu Ming said coldly as he slapped the air. A palm condensed from Saint Power was formed and slapped Yen Song's face. Yen Song's body flew out again and spun a few times in the air. Under the control of Lu Ming's force, he fell to the ground and knelt there. "I just said that I want you to pay me back tenfold. You slapped me once, so I'll slap you 10 times. Lu Ming said coldly. He waved his hand again and delivered another 10 slaps. After 10 consecutive slaps, Yen Song's face had turned into a pig's head. His face was swollen beyond recognition. "I'm sorry, I gave you 2 more slaps." Lu Ming curled his lips. In addition to the previous 2 slaps, there were a total of 12 slaps. Yen Song was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. This was too much. Swoosh! At this moment, a ray of light flew over from afar and landed on the ground. It was Ruan Tianjiao. She rushed over as soon as she received the news. When she saw the scene, she was speechless. Yen Song dared to hit Lu Ming. He was asking for it. She rushed over not because she was worried about Lu Ming, but because she was afraid that Lu Ming would kill Yen Song in a fit of anger. Yen Song was the son of the state preceptor after all. If he died, there would be trouble. "Tianjiao, you came at the right time. Lu Ming is a spy. How dare he hit an expert from our bright flame country? Get your men to take him down. Cripple his cultivation and bring him back for interrogation." Yen Song screamed hysterically when he saw Ruan Tianjiao. Ruan Tianjiao shook her head secretly. Yen Song was still stubborn. "Yen Song, I've told you long ago that Lu Ming is my guest and not a spy. Furthermore, you were the one who started this. You only have yourself to blame." Ruan Tianjiao said plainly. "What? What did you say? I asked for it? Ruan Tianjiao, you adulterous couple. Just you wait." Yen Song was furious. He left behind a few harsh words and staggered away. "Get lost." Then, Lu Ming waved his hand and a few of Yen Song's subordinates flew out and landed heavily on the ground. They got up in a sorry state and ran away. "Lu Ming, thank you for not killing Yen Song." Ruan Tianjiao cupped her fists at Lu Ming. She knew that Lu Ming did not kill Yen Song mostly because of her. Lu Ming smiled and said, "I didn't implicate you by hitting Yen Song, did I? No, I'm one of the 5 marshals of Bright Fire Country. Yen Song can't do anything to me." Ruan Tianjiao shook her head. The matter was over just like that. After that, Ruan Tianjiao continued to train the army while Lu Ming cultivated every day. After more than 10 days, he went to the capital with Ruan Tianjiao. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. On this day, someone from the capital came with an imperial edict from the emperor. Ruan Tianjiao led his men to receive the edict. The person who came to deliver the edict was a skinny old man. He squinted his eyes and smiled. "Congratulations, Marshal Ruan Tianjiao. His Majesty has decreed that you will be betrothed to young Master Yen Song. The wedding will take place soon. What? Those words were like a bolt from the blue. It stunned Yuan Tianjiao and her subordinates. The emperor betrothed Yuan Tianjiao to Yen Song? How was that possible? Super Overlord, are you sure you're not mistaken? I'm a marshal. Why would His Majesty grant a marriage so easily? Yuan Tianjiao asked. Chief's face darkened. His Majesty has issued the edict himself and announced it to the world. How can it be wrong? Damn it, it must be Yen Song. What did he say to His Majesty? It's most likely his sister, concubine Qing. She bewitched His Majesty. Several of Yuan Tianjiao's subordinates were furious. Needless to say, it must be Yen Song's doing. Yen Song pursued Yuan Tianjiao, but Yuan Tianjiao never treated Yen Song well. 7 days ago, Yen Song was taught a lesson by Lu Ming. He must have harbored a grudge. After returning to the capital, he must have told the emperor something. Otherwise, why would the emperor suddenly grant a marriage? Marshal Yuan Tianjiao, accept the edict and thank His Majesty for his kindness. The supergiant said coldly. Chief, please go back. Please forgive me for not accepting the edict. Yuan Tianjiao said with a sullen face. What? You're not accepting the edict? Yuan Tianjiao, are you going to defy the edict? Chief scolded coldly. So what if I defy the edict? That fatuous emperor is getting muddle-headed. One of the subordinates said coldly. How dare you insult His Majesty? That's a capital offense. Chief pointed at the subordinate and shouted. I think you'll be the first to die. The subordinate emitted a cold murderous intent as he looked at Chief. Chief shuddered. His face turned pale and cold sweat broke out all over his body. If Yuan Tianjiao rebelled in anger and killed him, he would have died in vain. Chief, please go back. I won't accept the edict. I'll return to the capital personally and ask His Majesty. Chapter 1943. I will leave tomorrow and return to the capital. I will leave the divine WRM army to you all. Yuan Tianjiao looked at his subordinates. Marshal, why don't we just rebel? One of the subordinates said. That's right. His Majesty is muddle-headed and infatuated with concubine Qing. He doesn't care about the state affairs and all the power is controlled by the Grand Tutor. Why don't we just rebel and replace him? Marshal, you are the goddess of war and have contributed greatly to the Bright Flame country. If you replace him, the people will definitely welcome you. A few of the subordinates spoke one after another, advising Yuan Tianjiao to rebel and kill his way to the capital. Shut up! Yuan Tianjiao shouted and everyone shut up. My Yuan family has been loyal for generations. How can we rebel? In the future, don't mention such things again. Otherwise, we will punish you according to military law. Yuan Tianjiao shouted. His gaze was like lightning, causing the subordinates' faces to turn ugly. Marshal, we will go to the capital with you tomorrow. If the Yen family is plotting something, we can take care of each other. One of the subordinates said. No need. Your mission is to oversee the divine WYRM army. I have the ability to protect myself. Yuan Tianjiao said. Tomorrow, I will go with you. A voice could be heard. It was Lu Ming who was walking over. Of course, Lu Ming had seen everything that had happened just now. He was going to the capital anyway and could go with Yuan Tianjiao. Yuan Tianjiao looked at Lu Ming and nodded his head. The next day, Lu Ming and Yuan Tianjiao rode on a mutated beast and headed to the capital of the Bright Flame country. The island was vast. However, the mutated beasts they rode were fast like the wind. In 3 days, they arrived at the capital of the Bright Flame country. On the way, Yuan Tianjiao explained the situation of the Bright Flame country. Ever since the emperor of the Bright Flame country was infatuated with concubine Qing, he had neglected the state affairs and the power was controlled by the Grand Tutor. The Grand Tutor had plundered all the treasures in the Bright Flame country for his own cultivation, causing the people to live in poverty and the country's power to decline day by day. Currently, the Grand Tutor was the most powerful person in the Bright Flame country. The capital of the Bright Fire Nation was very big and lively. However, Lu Ming had seen the prosperity of the Celestial City. Compared to the Celestial City, the Bright Fire Nation was like a village in the wilderness. The two of them rode their strange beasts into the capital and headed towards the Imperial Palace. Greetings, Marshal Tian Zhao. Greetings, Heavenly Dragon War Goddess. The moment they entered the capital, the people who saw Nguyen Tianjiao bowed to him. It seems that you are very loved by the people. Lu Ming smiled and transmitted his voice to Nguyen Tianjiao. I'm just doing my duty, Nguyen Tianjiao said. He then nodded at the crowd and continued forward. Sigh, Marshal Tianjiao is such a peerless talent, yet she's actually going to marry that bastard Yen Song. What a pity. Isn't that so? But now that the Yen family is so powerful that even His Majesty listens to them, what can we do? It's just a pity for Marshal Tianjiao. Lu Ming heard the sighs and discussions of the commoners. Not long after, they arrived in front of a series of palaces. This was the Imperial Palace. However, they were blocked outside the Imperial Palace. Marshal Tianjiao, please forgive us. His Majesty has ordered that he won't see anyone for the next 2 days. A general guarding the gate cupped his fist and said, Go and inform him that I'm back. Nguyen Tianjiao said with a frown. His Majesty has said that if Marshal Tianjiao is back, there's no need to inform him. In 3 days, His Majesty will prepare a banquet to welcome you back. Marshal, come back in 3 days. The general guarding the gate said. Nguyen Tianjiao frowned and then left the Imperial Palace with Lu Ming without saying anything else. Not long after, they arrived in front of a mansion with the words Nguyen Mansion written on it. This was Nguyen Tianjiao's mansion in the capital. They were temporarily staying in the Nguyen family. After arranging a room for Lu Ming, Nguyen Tianjiao left the Nguyen family. No one knew where he went. A day later, Nguyen Tianjiao returned. Lu Ming, I've brought you the information you wanted about the ancient ruins. Nguyen Tianjiao found Lu Ming and handed a jade token to Lu Ming. Lu Ming took it and scanned it with his spiritual consciousness. Indeed, he found some ancient ruins of the 10,000 Seas realm recorded in it. Tianjiao, where is the most famous ruin in the 10,000 Seas realm? After looking at it for a while, Lu Ming asked. Of course it's the Sacred Mountain of Time. Legend has it that the Sacred Mountain of Time has existed for countless years. It was left behind by an immortal. Nguyen Tianjiao said. An immortal. Lu Ming muttered. During this period, he had a deeper understanding of the martial arts cultivation in the 10,000 Seas realm and the martial arts realms. Some of the realms and titles in the 10,000 Seas realm were the same as in the outside world. They went all the way to Martial Emperor, then Bright Sage, Supreme Sage, and Paragon Sage. However, there were changes after reaching Paragon Sage. Those above Paragon Sage were called Sage Emperors in the 10,000 Seas realm. Lu Ming speculated that Sage Emperors were equivalent to Boundary Emperors in the outside world. According to the ancient records and legends in the Bright Flame Country, Sage Emperors were the highest realm in this world. Above that was Immortal. Immortal had an endless lifespan and was immortal. However, it was a legend in the 10,000 Seas realm. It had never appeared before. Lu Ming speculated that the immortal in the 10,000 Seas realm was the martial emperor in the outside world. The Sacred Mountain of Time was left behind by an immortal. Could it be the Heavenly Emperor? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He had to go to the Sacred Mountain of Time. It might have something to do with the Heavenly Emperor. How can I go to the Sacred Mountain of Time? Lu Ming asked. I don't know. Nguyen Tianjiao shook his head and said. Legend has it that the Sacred Mountain of Time is on the Sacred Island of Time. However, no one can find the Sacred Island of Time. No one has been there before? Lu Ming frowned. Of course. Every 3 years, the Sacred Island of Time will send out an envoy to bring a group of people to the Sacred Island of Time to cultivate. It is said that the Sacred Island of Time has unique cultivation conditions. It is the Sacred Island of martial arts that countless people in the 10,000 Seas realm yearn for. The next time we go to the Sacred Island of Time is not far away. Soon, the 9 nations of sea will hold an alliance to select the people who will go to the Sacred Island of Time. The Bright Flame Country will also participate. Lu Ming, if you want to go to the Sacred Island of Time, that will be your chance. Nguyen Tianjiao explained. The 9 Nations Alliance? Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He had to go to the Sacred Mountain of Time. Lu Ming speculated that the experts who came from the outside world would probably go to the Sacred Mountain of Time. After all, it was suspected to be left behind by the Heavenly Emperor. If there were any treasures, they would be priceless. In a flash, 3 days had passed. 3 days later, Lu Ming and Nguyen Tianjiao went to the palace. This time, someone welcomed them into the palace and they came to an open space. This place was beautiful and the environment was very elegant. At this time, there were already some banquets on both sides of the place. When Lu Ming and Guin Tianjiao arrived, they saw that there were already many people. When Lu Ming arrived, he felt a cold gaze on him. Lu Ming followed the gaze and saw Yen Song staring at Lu Ming with a murderous look. Chapter 1944. Beside Yen Song was a skinny old man. His hair was white and he was dressed in luxurious clothes. He looked similar to Yen Song. Lu Ming guessed that this person should be the Grand Tutor. The Grand Tutor squinted his eyes and smiled faintly. It was hard to tell what he was thinking and he gave off a scheming vibe. In the middle seat, there were two people. One of them was an old man with white hair. He was dressed in a dragon robe and had a jade crown on his head. He should be the monarch of Bright Flame Country. Beside the king of Light Fire Country, there was a beautiful lady. She looked to be in her 20s. Her figure was graceful and her eyes were like silk. She was extremely charming and enchanting. This person should be Yen Song's sister, Imperial Concubine Qing. In other seats, there were other people with extraordinary auras. They should be the upper echelons of Bright Flame Country. Guan Tianjiao strode forward and bowed to the monarch of Bright Flame Country. "Greetings, Your Majesty." "Haha, Tianjiao is back. There's no need for formalities. Please take a seat." The monarch of Bright Flame Country laughed. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Guan Tianjiao said. After which, he walked to a row of seats with Lu Ming and sat down. "How dare you, Lu Ming? Who do you think you are? What right do you have to sit there?" Lu Ming had just sat down when Yen Song slammed the table and stood up. He looked at Lu Ming coldly. Lu Ming smirked. He was going to make things difficult for him so soon. "Get up. Don't you know where you are? Who are you sitting here? With your status, do you have the right to sit here? Get up and scram to the side." Yen Song chided again. However, Lu Ming acted as though he didn't hear him. He picked up the wine cup on the table and took a sip. "Good wine. It's really good wine. It's a pity that a wild dog is barking and ruining the mood. You! How dare you!" Yen Song was enraged. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Do you think you're noble? Why did you kneel before me?" Lu Ming laughed disdainfully. "Shut up. Men, remove this person's seat," Yen Song shouted. Immediately, someone stepped forward to remove Lu Ming's seat. The king of Bright Flame Country, Imperial Concubine Qing, the Imperial Tutor, and the rest of the people looked on indifferently as though they were watching a good show. Scram! At that moment, Guan Tianjiao let out a delicate roar and a murderous aura emanated from her. The bodyguard, who was about to remove Lu Ming's seat, froze in place. "Lu Ming is my friend. If you want to remove Lu Ming's position, then remove mine as well," Guin Tianjiao shouted. The guard stood there in a daze, not knowing what to do. Guan Tianjiao's status was incomparable to Lu Ming's. She was the marshal of the divine WYRM army and the goddess of war of the Bright Fire Country. How could he dare to remove Guan Tianjiao from her position? Retreat? Why aren't we retreating? Guan Tianjiao stared at the guard with a threatening gaze. The guard broke out in cold sweat and looked at Yen Song, the Grand Preceptor, and the others for help. Damn it! Yen Song was infuriated and jealous. Lu Ming did not know what medicine he had fed Guan Tianjiao, but Guan Tianjiao had been protecting Lu Ming. "All right, you may leave. Since this young man is a friend of the marshal, he can naturally sit here." At that moment, the Imperial Tutor spoke. The guard heaved a sigh of relief, bowed, and retreated as though he had been pardoned. "Tianjiao, you've returned just in time. I've already granted you a marriage and the date has been set. You've returned just in time to marry Yen Song." The king of Bright Flame Country spoke. "Your Majesty, I've returned for this matter. Feelings can't be forced. I have no feelings for Yen Song. I hope your Majesty can retract your order." Guan Tianjiao stood up and bowed to the king of Bright Flame Country. "How dare you!" Imperial Concubine Qing, who was standing beside the king of Bright Flame Country, shouted coldly, "The monarch's words are not a joke. Since your Majesty has already given the order, how can you retract it? Guan Tianjiao, do you want your Majesty to be a man who goes back on his words?" "I wouldn't dare." Guan Tianjiao cupped her fists and said, "If it's anything else, I'll definitely honor it." If you ask me to go into battle to kill the enemy, I won't even frown. However, I can't accept this order. Tianjiao, imperial concubine Qing, has also said that the monarch's words are not a joke. Moreover, Yen Song is not bad and is a good match for you. This matter is settled then. The king of Bright Flame Country waved his hand and said in an unquestionable tone. Ruan Tianjiao was in disbelief. She did not expect the king of Bright Flame Country to marry her to Yen Song so hastily without her consent. Although the king of Bright Flame Country in the past was muddle-headed, he would not do this. Previously, Your Majesty has already announced to the world that the two of you will be married in half a month. This matter is settled then. During this period, Marshal Tianjiao shall stay in the palace. The imperial tutor spoke as though the matter had been settled. Ruan Tianjiao shook her head. She was extremely disappointed in the king of Bright Flame Country. Initially, she came back to ask the king of Bright Flame Country for an explanation, and for the king of Bright Flame Country to retract his order. However, she now realized that the king of Bright Flame Country was completely on the imperial tutor's side. Lu Ming did not say anything. A strange light flashed in his eyes as he secretly sized up the king of Bright Flame Country. He had discovered something interesting. Tianjiao, I'm afraid the king of Bright Flame Country won't listen to you. Imperial concubine Qing is good at seduction techniques. The king of Bright Flame Country has already fallen for her seduction techniques and will listen to everything she says. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Ruan Tianjiao. What? Ruan Tianjiao was stunned at first. Then, she flew into a rage and stood up abruptly. A powerful aura spread out as she glared at the imperial tutor and shouted, Yen Kuei and Yen Ling, how dare you use seduction techniques to bewitch His Majesty? As soon as she said that, the expressions of imperial concubine Qing, the imperial tutor, Yen Song, and the others changed drastically. Ruan Tianjiao, what nonsense are you talking about? Yen Song roared. You know very well whether I'm talking nonsense or not. Yen Kuei and Yen Ling, you dare to plot against His Majesty and control him from the shadows. No wonder His Majesty doesn't care about the affairs of the imperial court and gave you all the power. I'm going to announce this to the world. Lu Ming, let's go. Having said that, Ruan Tianjiao strode out. Stop him. The imperial tutor's face was gloomy. With a wave of his hand, 4 figures flashed and surrounded Lu Ming and Ruan Tianjiao. Each of them exuded a powerful aura. Perfect Bright Sage Realm. Lu Ming did not need to look to know that the 4 of them were at the perfect Bright Sage Realm, and were not any weaker than Ruan Tianjiao. The 4 of you are marshals. Are you willing to give in to the imperial tutor? Ruan Tianjiao spoke with a solemn expression. The 4 of them were on par with her. The other 4 marshals of Bright Fire Country had strong combat strength. They were all in the great circle of the Bright Sage Realm. Each of their combat strength was not much weaker than hers. If the 4 of them joined forces, she would definitely be no match for them. Ruan Tianjiao, you disobeyed the imperial decree. You are indeed ambitious and want to rebel. The imperial tutor spoke plainly and pinned a serious crime on Ruan Tianjiao. Nonsense. Chapter 1945. The imperial advisor sneered and said, You didn't even listen to His Majesty's orders and disobeyed the edict. If this isn't rebellion, what is it? Moreover, I've already received news that you secretly colluded with Luo Shui Nation and attempted to overthrow the Bright Flame Nation. You deserve to die. Colluding with Luo Shui Nation? Nonsense. Who would believe your one-sided story? Ruan Tianjiao shouted. If you want evidence, I'll give it to you. Come out. The imperial advisor's cold voice was heard. Then, a burly man in his 30s walked out. Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Imperial Advisor. The burly man bowed to the king and the imperial advisor. Wang Xing, why are you here? Ruan Tianjiao was very surprised because Wang Xing was her bodyguard who had followed her for many years. However, she did not allow Wang Xing to come to the capital. Shouldn't Wang Xing be with the Divine Wyrm army? Ruan Tianjiao had a bad feeling in his heart. Wang Xing, tell me everything you know. The imperial advisor said. Wang Xing nodded and said, Ruan Tianjiao has indeed colluded with Luo Shui Nation and has been plotting secretly. When the time comes, he will secretly rebel and proclaim himself the emperor. However, I'm a citizen of the Bright Flame Nation and I'm only loyal to His Majesty. How can I let such a thing happen? Today, I'll reveal Yuan Tianjiao's wild ambition to the public. Wang Xing's voice spread throughout the place. Wang Xing, how dare you slander me? Yuan Tianjiao shouted, trembling with anger. It was obvious that Wang Xing had been bribed by the imperial advisor and had joined forces with the imperial advisor to frame her. However, Wang Xing was her bodyguard. Many people might believe what he said. Yuan Tianjiao, your conspiracy has been exposed. Why don't you surrender? However, since Yen Song pleaded for you, I'll spare your life. As long as you destroy your cultivation, marry Yen Song, and hand over your military power, I won't announce your rebellion to the world. I'll protect your innocence. The imperial advisor said coldly as if he had the pearl of wisdom in his hand. For this matter, he had already set up a plan. Everything was perfect and Yuan Tianjiao had no room to resist. There was only one outcome. That was to destroy her cultivation, hand over her military power, and marry his son Yen Song. Yen Song had a smug look in his eyes as he looked coldly at Nguyen Tianjiao and Lu Ming. A slut and a dog dares to fight with me? You're simply courting death. Yen Song laughed heartily, feeling extremely pleased with himself. Especially when he looked at Nguyen Tianjiao's handsome face and perfect figure, his heart burned with passion. He wanted nothing more than to take Nguyen Tianjiao for himself. However, it will be soon, he told himself. You, despicable! Nguyen Tianjiao was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She understood that not only did the imperial advisor want Yen Song to marry her, but he also wanted to take away her military power. At that moment, the other 4 great marshals had already submitted to the imperial tutor. If the divine dragon army was also in his hands, then the bright fire country would really become the imperial tutor's world and no one would be able to stop him. Nguyen Tianjiao cast her gaze at the monarch, but the monarch did not even look at her. All he did was chuckle and drink with concubine Qing. Nguyen Tianjiao was utterly disappointed. And, at this moment, Lu Ming's calm voice could be heard. What? The imperial advisor, Yen Song, and the rest were stunned. They did not understand what Lu Ming meant. If you're not talking, then you're done. Since you're done, it's my turn to speak. Lu Ming looked around with a faint smile on his face and said, today's incident is like this. The imperial advisor, Yen Song, and concubine Qing led a rebellion and killed the monarch with the intention of replacing him. Then, Marshal Nguyen Tianjiao arrived with his men and killed the rebels to avenge the monarch. In the end, Nguyen Tianjiao became the empress of the bright fire country with the support of the people. What? The imperial advisor, Yen Song, concubine Qing, and the rest of the people present, including Nguyen Tianjiao, were all dumbfounded. It took them a while to react. Ha ha ha, this brat must have been scared out of his wits when he was about to die. Yen Song laughed until tears rolled down his cheeks. The imperial advisor, concubine Qing, and the rest laughed too. Their laughter was filled with contempt. Lu Ming meant to kill all of them and let Nguyen Tianjiao sit on the throne of the empress. How was that possible? What a lunatic! The imperial advisor and the rest shook their heads. Lu Ming did not seem to notice the expressions of the imperial advisor and the rest. Instead, he looked at Nguyen Tianjiao and said, Tianjiao, what do you think of my idea? Ah! Nguyen Tianjiao was stunned and could not react in time. I understand. Since you can't do it, let me do it. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He then stood up and walked toward Yen Song. This guy is crazy. Kill him. Yen Song shouted. Brat, you're crazy. Dang. One of the marshals shouted and took a step forward. The ground rumbled as his burly body rushed towards Lu Ming. He was like a mountain crashing down on Lu Ming with a terrifying aura. However, Lu Ming looked calm as if he did not see the marshal making a move. He allowed the attack to come. Be careful. Nguyen Tianjiao exclaimed. However, it was too late for him to save Nguyen Tianjiao. Brat, go to hell. Yen Song roared in his heart. His eyes were full of pride. Trying to fight with him for a woman? You're courting death. At this moment, Lu Ming looked at the marshal. 2 rays of black light flashed across his eyes. Then, everyone saw the marshal's body tremble and fall to the ground with a plop. He was no longer breathing. Dead. The marshal died suddenly and silently. No one saw how the marshal died and no one saw how Lu Ming attacked. The scene suddenly quietened down. The imperial advisor's eyes narrowed slightly and a cold light flashed in them. How dare you kill the marshal of an army? If this is not a rebellion, What is it? Let's attack together and kill this person. Concubine Qing shouted beside the king. Boom, boom, boom. The other three marshals attacked at the same time. The three of them were in the Great Sage realm. When they attacked together, their momentum was terrifying. They wanted to kill Lu Ming in one fell swoop. Die! Lu Ming didn't even look at the three marshals. His gaze was fixed on Yen Song as he uttered a word. The power of the divine sword art was released along with his voice and rushed into the bodies of the three marshals. The three marshals were the same as the previous marshal. Their bodies trembled slightly and their souls were destroyed by Lu Ming. Their bodies fell to the ground softly and there was no longer any breath left. Dead, they were dead again. The four marshals, the top experts of the Bright Fire Country, were all dead in an instant. No one saw how they died. There was a series of gasps at the scene. They only heard Lu Ming say the word died and the three marshals were dead. This was too terrifying. What kind of supernatural power was this? It was as if Lu Ming was the Grim Reaper. Whoever he wanted to kill would die. Yen Song's face changed and turned as pale as a sheet. His eyes were filled with fear. The Imperial Advisor and Concubine Qing's faces also changed and became extremely solemn. Chapter 1946. As for Wan Tianjiao, she was dumbfounded and in disbelief. The cultivation of the four marshals was on par with her, but her spiritual body was slightly higher. In terms of combat strength, she was ranked first among the five marshals, but she wasn't much stronger. For such experts had died in front of Lu Ming in an instant. What cultivation did Lu Ming have? Could Lu Ming be an expert of the Great Sage realm? In the past, when she first met Lu Ming, although she felt that Lu Ming was extraordinary, she also felt that Lu Ming was at most on par with her. She didn't expect Lu Ming to kill the four top experts silently. Bam, bam. After Lu Ming killed the four marshals, he continued to move forward and walk towards Yen Song. Every step he took seemed to be knocking on Yen Song's heart, causing his heart to tremble. The fear in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. Kill him. Let's kill him together. Yen Song screamed hysterically. This person is rebelling and wants to harm His Majesty. Quick, kill him. Concubine Qing also shouted. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Several figures rushed out from behind the monarch and the Imperial Advisor. These people's auras were very powerful. Many of them were in the Great Sage realm and were not weaker than the four marshals. These people were the experts nurtured by the Imperial family and the Imperial Advisor. This was their true strength. Many experts joined forces and intertwined their power like an inescapable net, enveloping Lu Ming. Kill! At this moment, Lu Ming shouted again. The sound waves spread out and rushed in all directions. The people who were attacking him from all directions were the same as the four marshals. Their bodies trembled and then they fell to the ground and stopped breathing. This time, even the Imperial Preceptor's face changed and turned pale. Yen Song and Concubine Qing were completely terrified. Demon, you're a demon. Yen Song screamed hysterically. Lu Ming had only spat out a single word, and so many experts had died in an instant. This was beyond his comprehension. At this moment, Lu Ming was a demon in his eyes. Lu Ming's eyes were cold as he continued to walk towards Yen Song. Yen Song's body began to tremble in fear. He kept retreating as he shouted, "Father, Father, save me." "He can't touch you," the Imperial Preceptor coldly spoke. After which, a terrifying aura erupted from his body. This aura was much stronger than any of the auras from before. Great Saint Stage. Yen Kuei, you've broken through to the Great Saint Stage. Nguyen Tianjiao shouted in disbelief. The Grand Preceptor had already broken through to the Great Saint realm, and was known as the #1 expert in the Bright Fire Country. She couldn't help but worry for Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's expression didn't change at all. It was as if the cultivation of the Great Sage realm couldn't cause any ripples in Lu Ming's heart. Brothers Jian, let's attack together. The State Preceptor suddenly spoke. I didn't expect the Bright Flame Country to have such a character. Very well, it's safer to attack together. An old voice sounded behind the State Preceptor. Then, two old men stepped out and stood beside the State Preceptor. Boom, boom. Then, a terrifying aura erupted from the two old men. The terrifying aura swept through the clouds and changed the color of the sky. These two old men also had the cultivation of the Great Sage realm. Like the State Preceptor, They were both in the lesser great sage realm. At the same time, two long swords like ripples were suspended above the two old men's heads. The twin sword saints of the Luo Shui country. You're the unparalleled sword saints of the Luo Shui country. Yan Kuei, it turns out that you're the one who colluded with the Luo Shui country. Nguyen Tianjiao shouted in shock. The unparalleled sword saints of the Luo Shui country were the most terrifying experts in the country. Two lesser great sage realm experts had appeared beside the state preceptor. Needless to say, the state preceptor had secretly colluded with the Luo Shui country. He was the real traitor. So what if I know? Today all of you will die. The state preceptor said coldly. Kill, father, kill this kid. No, cripple him first. I want him to suffer a fate worse than death. Yen Song was stunned at first. Obviously, he did not expect the state preceptor's cultivation to have reached the great sage realm. Moreover, the unparalleled sword saint of the Luo Shui country was beside him. But immediately, he was ecstatic and shouted in ecstasy. 3 great sages. Lu Ming was dead for sure, no matter what tricks he had up his sleeves. The great sage realm was a legend in the bright flame country. Is this your trump card? Lu Ming did not even look at Yen Song. He said indifferently. Then, he stretched out a hand and pressed against the void. Boom! In the sky, a huge hand suddenly appeared. It covered the sky and pressed down on the state preceptor and the unparalleled sword saint of the Luo Shui country. The terrifying aura spread out in all directions. The state preceptor and the unparalleled sword saint of the Luo Shui country turned pale. They felt that the aura was not something they could resist. At this moment, they wanted to escape. But they found that the space around them had solidified. They could not escape at all. Yen Song and Imperial Concubine Qing were completely stunned. They stared blankly at the godlike hand in the sky. Their bodies trembled like sieves. This kind of power made them feel hopeless. Block it! The state preceptor roared. He was unwilling to give up. He still wanted to resist. He formed a seal with both hands and struck out a terrifying palm print. At the same time, the unparalleled sword saint of the Luo Shui country also attacked. 2 sword lights rushed up to the sky like a river. However, the lesser great sage realm was no different from an ant in the hands of Lu Ming. Under the pressure of the huge hand, the attacks of the 3 collapsed instantly. Finally, the huge hand covered the 3 of them and slammed them to the ground. Boom! The earth rumbled. Smoke and dust filled the air. Gravel flew everywhere. After a while, the smoke and dust disappeared. Everyone saw a huge palm print on the ground. The state preceptor and the unparalleled sword saint of the Luo Shui country were lying in the palm print like dead dogs, vomiting blood. Their aura was extremely weak. They were like 3 ordinary people. Lu Ming had crippled their cultivation with that blow. The state preceptor's eyes were full of unwillingness and despair. It's over. He knew that everything was over. Ah! Yen Song suddenly screamed. His body turned into a rainbow light and fled into the distance. He did not care about the state preceptor and the others and wanted to escape alone. However, Lu Ming flicked his finger. A force flew out and pierced into Yen Song's dantian. It pierced through his dantian and crippled his cultivation. With his cultivation crippled, Yen Song could not fly. He fell to the ground heavily and screamed hysterically. You're the only one left. Lu Ming stepped toward Qing Fei and the state preceptor. How dare you touch my beloved concubine? I will exterminate your 9 generations. The state preceptor shouted and stood in front of Lu Ming. Lu Ming shook his head. The state preceptor had completely lost his mind. It was useless to keep him alive. Chapter 1947. After killing the monarch, Lu Ming looked at Imperial Concubine Qing. Imperial Concubine Qing's eyes were filled with fear as she looked at Lu Ming. Suddenly, she smiled and said, Young master, you have such a cultivation at such a young age. I'm really impressed. Lu Ming replied with a soft "oh." Yan Kuei and his son committed treason and killed the monarch. Fortunately, young master intervened and killed them to avenge the monarch. With young master's cultivation, you can lead the bright flame country. I'm willing to assist young master to ascend the throne and serve young master wholeheartedly. Imperial Concubine Qing spoke with a pleasant voice. Her enchanting body twisted like a water snake and was about to pounce into Lu Ming's arms. At the same time, she looked into Lu Ming's eyes with a strange glint in her eyes. Trying to seduce me? You're overestimating yourself, Lu Ming said plainly. When he said the last word, Lu Ming's eyes shone like stars. Imperial concubine Qing screamed as her body flew out and fell to the ground. She vomited blood and her face was pale with despair. Her cultivation had also been crippled. Lu Ming smiled faintly. This woman had tried to seduce him. She was overestimating herself. Lu Ming had only used a little power and she had already suffered a backlash and her cultivation was crippled. Lu Ming took a step forward and stood above the state preceptor. He looked down at the state preceptor and said calmly, "Your plan is not bad. It's a pity that you are too weak. What's the use of racking your brains? Heaven is not helping me." The Grand Tutor roared. His voice was hoarse and his eyes were filled with unwillingness and despair. He had tried his best to set up this trap. It was supposed to be flawless and Yuan Tianjiao had no chance to turn the tables. In the future, the bright flame country would definitely fall into his hands. He had never expected that Lu Ming would appear halfway and destroy all his plans with absolute power. In the face of absolute power, all plans were laughable. He finally understood why Lu Ming had been drinking calmly without saying a word when they were following the plan step by step. He was looking at them as if they were clowns. Lu Ming was letting them play. When they thought that the situation was settled, he would strike and easily destroyed all their plans, efforts and plans. He could only blame heaven for not helping him. Why did someone like Lu Ming appear? Who are you? There's no one like you in the 9 nations? The Grand Tutor roared indignantly. You don't have the right to know who I am. Lu Ming spoke calmly. Afterward, Lu Ming looked at Yuan Tianjiao and said, "Tianjiao, how should we settle this?" At this moment, Yuan Tianjiao seemed to have just woken up from a dream. The shock that Lu Ming gave her was too strong. A great sage powerhouse was powerless in Lu Ming's hands. He could destroy them with a flip of his hand. She was shocked. Kill them all," said Yuan Tianjiao coldly. Since things had come to this point, there was no turning back. After making the decision, Yuan Tianjiao turned into an iron-blooded marshal and stepped forward. Sword light burst out and killed the Grand Tutor, Yen Song, concubine Qing, and some members of the royal family. Yuan Tianjiao transformed into a grim reaper and secretly killed his way into the depths of the palace, killing all the high-ranking members of the royal family. Since things had come to this point, Yuan Tianjiao knew that there was no turning back. Then, Yuan Tianjiao took the body of the unparalleled sword saint of Luo Shui country and stood on the city tower of Desolation City. She announced to the world that the Grand Tutor had rebelled and colluded with the 4 marshals and concubine Qing to kill the king and the core members of the royal family in an attempt to usurp the throne. Later, Yuan Tianjiao arrived and killed the Grand Tutor and the rebels. Unfortunately, it was too late. The world was shocked when the news came out. A few days later, the Divine Wyrm army reached the capital and took control of it. However, the other 4 marshals' armies also announced to the world that it was all Yuan Tianjiao's scheme. Yuan Tianjiao killed the Grand Tutor and the king in an attempt to usurp the throne. She led the army to attack the Divine Wyrm army in the name of avenging the king. However, the 4 armies had lost experts like the marshals and their cohesion was greatly weakened. Moreover, the Divine Wyrm army had cultivated the true dragon battle formation and was very powerful. They easily defeated the 4 armies and subdued them. At this point, the Bright Flame country was under Yuan Tianjiao's control. A few days later, the Divine Wyrm army requested Yuan Tianjiao to ascend the throne on the grounds that the country could not be without a ruler. However, Yuan Tianjiao rejected them. A few days later, the generals tried again but were still rejected by Yuan Tianjiao. The 3rd time, not only the generals but also countless commoners came to petition for Yuan Tianjiao to ascend the throne and take control of the Bright Flame country. In the past, the Bright Flame country's Grand Tutor was in power and was famous. Now that the Grand Tutor was killed, the commoners celebrated. As for Yuan Tianjiao, she had always been known as the goddess of war and was deeply loved by the commoners. Naturally, the commoners hoped that Yuan Tianjiao would take control of the Bright Flame country. Only then did Yuan Tianjiao agree to inherit the throne and become the empress. The Bright Flame country was bustling with activity as they prepared for the coronation ceremony. Lu Ming naturally would not interfere in these matters. To the Bright Flame country, he was just a passerby and would leave soon. Now, he only needed to wait for the 9 Nations Alliance before heading to the Time God Island to explore the sacred mountain of time. During this period of time, he quietly cultivated. However, not long after, a piece of news came. Luo Xue country had mobilized a large army and boarded a warship to attack the Bright Flame country. The entire Bright Flame country was shocked. Luo Xue country's national strength had always been above the Bright Flame country. They had always wanted to annex the Bright Flame country, and the two countries had been at war for the past few years. Yuan Tianjiao immediately gave the order to mobilize a large army to attack Luo Xue country. Lu Ming also set off with the army. When they arrived at the northern part of the Bright Flame country, they saw a few huge warships flying towards them. In front of the warships, there was a large army riding on various types of strange beasts. The army looked powerful. Luo Xue country and the Bright Flame country have been on good terms for generations. However, such traitors have usurped the throne. Today, Luo Xue country is here to seek revenge from the Bright Flame country's ruler. A voice came from the army of Luo Xue country. How shameless! Yuan Tianjiao shook his head. Luo Xue country had been at war with the Bright Flame country for a long time. Luo Xue country had always been trying to invade the Bright Flame country. Now, in the mouth of Luo Xue country, it had become a good relationship between the two countries. If you want to find a reason to invade my country, you should find a better one. This reason is really laughable. Yuan Tianjiao's voice came out. Traitors, you still dare to be reasonable. Today is the day you die. Kill. Luo Xue country's commander gave the order. The army formed a battle formation and charged towards the Bright Flame country. Set up the formation and kill the enemy. Yuan Tianjiao gave the order. The Divine Wyrm army set up a large formation. Suddenly, a true dragon appeared and roared towards the sky. Such a large formation. Luo Xue country's commander was shocked. Boom! The armies of the two countries collided fiercely. Chapter 1948. The army was defeated like a landslide. The army of Luo Xue country had only clashed with the Divine Wyrm army a few times before they were torn apart. Their battle formation was also broken. Roar! The true dragon roared, and its huge dragon claw slammed down. A large number of soldiers were killed by the dragon claw, and blood filled the air. Run! The battle formation was broken, and it was even more impossible to defend against the Divine Wyrm army. Soldiers were killed continuously, and the remaining soldiers were scared out of their wits and fled frantically. Damn it, kill! A loud roar came from Luo Xue country, and an armored general rushed out, releasing a shocking aura. This person was an eminent saint stage powerhouse. Luo Xue country was much stronger than Bright Flame country. They had many supreme saints, unlike Bright Flame country, which only had one imperial advisor. Let me play with you. Lu Ming stepped out, and then waved his hand. A huge palm formed and pressed down on the other party. Ah, not good. The other party was scared out of his wits. He wanted to escape, but he was directly hit by the palm, and his body was torn into pieces. In the army, Yuan Tianjiao was secretly shocked. Lu Ming was simply unfathomable. He could kill a supreme saint expert with a raise of his hand. What kind of person was Lu Ming? Complete supreme saint? Or absolute saint? Yuan Tianjiao was curious, but then she shook her head. How could such a young absolute saint be possible? She estimated that Lu Ming's cultivation was at the peak of the supreme saint, or even at the complete supreme saint level. This was already very shocking. There was no suspense in this battle. Luo Xue country's army was defeated like a landslide, and almost all of them were wiped out. The remaining people either surrendered or fled. The few huge warships also belonged to Bright Flame country. When the news of the Divine Wyrm army defeating Luo Xue country spread, the whole country celebrated, and Yuan Tianjiao's reputation reached its peak. Taking this opportunity, Yuan Tianjiao ascended to the throne, becoming the only empress of Bright Flame country in so many years. In the following days, Lu Ming cultivated quietly. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. At this time, it was finally the day of the 9 countries alliance. Songhai was the name of this sea region. In this sea region, there were a total of 9 countries, known as the 9 countries of Songhai. Mingyan country and Luo Xue country were both part of the 9 countries of Songhai. The purpose of this meeting was to select the candidates to go to the Divine Light Island. It was said that if one went to the Time Divine Island, there was a high chance that they would be accepted as a disciple by the Time Divine Island's experts. The Time God Island was the strongest power in the 10,000 Seas world. It was a holy land for cultivators. And this time, the location of the Alliance meeting was in the capital of Blue Water Nation, one of the 9 nations. The Blue Water Nation was the strongest nation among the 9 nations and had always been the leader of the Alliance of the 9 nations. Nguyen Tianjiao selected a group of experts and headed towards Xueqi Nation with Lu Ming. 10 days later, they arrived at the capital of Blue Water Nation. A few days later, the 9-nation alliance officially started. In a square in front of the Blue Water Nation Imperial Palace, there were rows of tables and chairs. The monarchs of the 9 nations of the sea and some other experts were seated. The people of Blue Water Nation sat at the head of the table, representing their status as the leader of the alliance. All right, this time's alliance meeting is the same as before. It is to select the candidates to go to the Time Divine Island. The 9 nations only have a total of 100 spots. A deep voice came from the side of Blue Water Nation. It was the monarch of Blue Water Nation. He looked to be in his 50s and was burly. His aura was deep and strong, and he was full of majesty. In my opinion, there should only be 8 nations this time. The Bright Flame Nation is not qualified to participate in this alliance meeting, and is not qualified to go to the Time Divine Island. A cold voice sounded from the right side. The one who spoke was a thin middle-aged man. He was the monarch of Xueqi Nation. Xueqi Nation's meticulous plan of many years had been ruined. A few great saints had died consecutively, and their strength had weakened greatly. At this time, how could they not target the Bright Flame Nation? My Bright Flame Nation is not qualified to participate in the alliance meeting? Do you think you have the final say? Nguyen Tianjiao said coldly. That goes without saying. You, Nguyen Tianjiao, have the ambition of a wolf and rebelled. You killed the monarch of the Bright Flame Nation and replaced him. How can such a person be qualified to participate in the alliance meeting? The monarch of Xueqi Nation said coldly and continued to mock. The 9 nations of Blue Sea have a long history. Each nation's royal family has a noble bloodline. Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to rule the Bright Flame Nation? Haha, your Xueqi Nation colluded with my Bright Flame Nation's imperial advisor to harm the previous monarch, causing the reputation of the Bright Flame Nation to be ruined. Later on, you wanted to harm me. How can I not resist? Nguyen Tianjiao sneered. A traitor is a traitor. No matter how much you say, you can't escape the fact that you are a traitor. The monarch of Xueqi Nation said coldly. He then looked at the monarch of Blue Water Nation and said, Brother Tsong, is Nguyen Tianjiao from the Bright Flame Nation qualified to participate in the alliance meeting? Is he qualified to go to the Time Divine Island? The monarch of Blue Water Nation said indifferently, The Time Divine Island is a sacred place. A traitor is indeed not qualified to go there. Everyone from the Bright Flame Nation, please return. The monarch of Blue Water Nation was obviously on the side of Xueqi Nation. This made Nguyen Tianjiao's face turn ugly. As for the people from the other nations, they looked on with gloating expressions. With the Bright Flame Nation leaving, they would have one less competitor. Naturally, they were happy to see that. Haha, what a joke. At this moment, Lu Ming smiled faintly. His disdainful voice spread across the entire place. Who do you think you are? When the monarchs are speaking, when is it your turn to interrupt? The monarch of Xueqi Nation glanced at Lu Ming and scolded. However, Lu Ming did not even bother to look at the monarch of Xueqi Nation and treated him like air. What's so funny? The monarch of Blue Water Nation looked at Lu Ming and asked coldly. Speaking of traitors, which of the founders of the 9 nations is not a traitor? If they are not traitors, how can there be the 9 nations today? Lu Ming said faintly. Tens of thousands of years ago, there were no 9 nations in the Blue Sea region. There was only one nation, the Blue Sea Nation. At that time, the Blue Sea Nation ruled the current territory of the 9 nations. Later, the ancestors of the 9 nations rebelled together and destroyed the Blue Sea Nation. It could be said that the ancestors of the 9 nations were all traitors. How dare you? Presumptuous, you are courting death. How dare you insult the ancestors? Kill without mercy. The monarchs roared and their powerful auras shrouded Lu Ming. You are all traitors. What right do you have to speak about the Fire Nation? If the Bright Flame Nation is not qualified, then none of you are qualified. Lu Ming was still calm and his voice was full of contempt. You are courting death. On the side of Blue Water Nation, an old man flew out. He did not hide his cold murderous intent. A terrifying sword light bloomed from his hand and charged towards Lu Ming. This person had the cultivation of the perfect bright saint realm. Get lost! Lu Ming shouted. The old man's sword light collapsed and his body shook violently. He flew back at a faster speed than when he came and vomited blood. The monarchs of the various nations and other experts all narrowed their eyes and showed a trace of seriousness. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.